one musical chairs are happening.
I know, right. And get, I think I'm gonna be out the door next time. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe that door.
No, you're not going anywhere, okay?
Well, no, if it's Saturday, then I can't Tuesday.
Okay.
Why is cats?
What's that?
Okay, hold on. How do you? Yeah, I don't know how to do it. Yes, it's John Jackman. Yes.
Yeah, I can't find that.
Yeah, we got to rename the board. The computer will be. We need to start Velcro and stuff. So that it's not in the bag, right? Mary, it's not in that. This is just a record.
Okay, got it. Thanks. Let me just get the TV on. Thanks. Oh, here we go. They're ready to go.
Got two lights on. He is gonna do the,
Pat, hit your button to turn it off.
Do it on and off.
Well, it's on right now. All right, and can you turn the other one off too?
maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. All right, Mr.
All right.
Davis, you are live.
Mary?
Are we on TV yet?
No, Pat Burke just texted me.
I have it on
There we go.
studio freed now.
Now we're on, huh?
Yeah. Councilman Strickland?
Okay, very good. Hey, how are you? Good afternoon. I want to call to order the Home Rule Charter Advisory Committee meeting. And Mr. Shane, would you give us a prayer, please?
Heavenly Father, we again appreciate the opportunity to be together, and as we join in this special time of the year, we ask that we remember the great sacrifice that you made for all of us. May we in some way make a similar sacrifice for the good of St. Tammany Parish. Be with us as we deliberate and discuss today. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Councilman Pat, you would give us a pledge?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Raleigh?
Here.
Ms. Tanner? Ms. LeBlanc?
Here.
Mr. Shane?
Here.
Mr. Lawler?
Here.
Mr. Davis?
Here.
Ms. Hayes? Mr. Delacroix? General Ernst?
Here.
Mr. Impastato? We have a quorum.
Great, thank you so much. The first item is approval of minutes from our last meeting. Hopefully you've read those here and are ready to make a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion by Arthur, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So move. Okay, new business, discussion of Article 2, Parish Council, Section 2-01, composition, qualifications, and election. I do have on your desk a letter from Jack Vincent. I hope you all will read that. I thought it was well-written and it gave a good understanding of what you perceive some of the issues are. Is there any other discussion in reference to the composition at this time? And remember, as we go through this, meeting number 12, if you want to come back to an item, all the commission members, all you got to do is make reference, and we do that. Okay? So if there's no more about the composition today, I'm going to move on.
Mr. Impastato has his light on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to move on to the next item.
The next item on that would be section 3 or 2?
DB Section 202, reapportionment. I just want to run through them. We've read them. If nobody has any objections, then we'll just...
Mr. Chairman, what I would like to do, if it's possible, and if there's a different time you'd rather do it, that's fine as well, but get back to section 1, where it discusses the form of government. We've had so many people come to the podium and talk about the benefits of a council manager style of government. I've done some reading on it as well, and I think it's worthy of some additional discussion.
Good. And I think that goes to heart, Mr. Impastato, what we're saying at any point, because it's taken us 5 or 6 of these meetings to understand all of the different details of parish government or any type of government. So there'll be times when you want to go back. So I think it is appropriate. My only question would be, at this point, can I say that these items, no one has any other discussion on these particular items, correct? And we're going to move, as Joe has requested, to kind of revisit the form of government. Okay? So with that, I do have, Mr. Vincent, you want to speak first in reference to, because I think some of the items that you brought up are in reference to forms of government and issues.
Great, thank you. John Vincent, 21573 Soul Drive, Abita Springs. I had missed the last meeting, but I had submitted some paperwork to you all, and the document I submitted today kind of covers the same thing. I think one of the problems we have, and I don't know what the perfect solution is for that, there's a disconnect between the council and the administration. We've experienced this in my neighborhood. In fact, I was talking to a neighbor just yesterday. Another one of the problems come up, and it has to deal with the implementation of ordinances. The council is the legislative group for the parish, and they issue an ordinance. And then it's turned over to the administration, and this is not a rub on President Cooper, but it goes to, and I'm going to use a kind of a bad term, administrative bureaucrats. So whenever there's a conflict or an inconsistency in an ordinance, at a low-level point, these people make a decision. And there's so many errors. In the document I turned in the last time to you all, I pointed out some clear evidence of how in the hell was that decision made? And there's no thought about the unintended consequences down the road of these things. And this is something I've been active in my community now for about 3 or 4 years, ever since we faced one of these very problems, and people came to me and said, do you know what's happening? And when they told me, we got organized and started fighting it, but we encountered the same problem over and over and over again. And I guess the biggest example the council's faced was the interpretation of apartments being lodging. Some low-level bureaucrat made the decision and essentially rewrote the ordinance from what the intention was. So I think that's one of the things that we need to look at. And listening to the past meetings of the form of councilmanic government and the parish president, I majored in government in undergraduate school. It's been a long time ago, so I've forgotten more than I know now. But I am familiar with city managers, and I've worked with several of them when I was doing consulting work. And I like the fact that a hired professional city manager reports directly to the council. And when there's an issue that comes up, or if citizens bring the council a question of how does this happening, a councilman can go directly to the manager and talk that through. And one of the things I had suggested in the document I turned in earlier was that whenever these differences of opinion or interpretation come up, it'd be really easy to form an ad hoc committee of 2 council members and the administration, sit down and have a discussion of what that means, and then have those 2 councilmen come back to the council itself and say, we had an issue with an interpretation of an ordinance, and we met with the administration, and this is what we decided. And then the council would hear it for the first time and decide, yeah, we agree with that, or no, let's talk about it. But it's basically taking power away from the people we elect and turning it over to, the way it's run now, basically turning it over to unelected people to make decisions on what that meant. And again, I urge you, if you haven't read what I submitted earlier, look at the examples that I put in that one document involving one case. And that's just one case of about 20 we've experienced in our neighborhood already. So I don't want to burn a lot of time, but I do want to thank all of you for your volunteer work on our behalf. I think that's so important. And I guess I'm here because I'm kind of public spirited also, trying to represent the neighbors who can't attend. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent. We do have a question for you, Fields. Arthur?
Jack, I have just something I want to clarify with, because you did mention 2 things that are really important. Is so as council, the council drafts ordinances, legislation, for lack of a better term, and we do not enforce it. Now, legislation on its own has unintended consequences, when we could say we order all houses to be painted blue, and if you're in the green paint business, you're out of business. But what you're really concentrating on is how they're enforced and how they're interpreted. Correct. By the enforcement arm of the government.
I mean, I literally have a file cabinet drawer home of discussions between myself and people in my neighborhood and the administration challenging those kinds of decisions. Like, how did this happen? Who made that decision? I'm reading this. I see what it says, but that's not what you're doing. And there's, unfortunately, and this is, I'm not going to mention names, but it seems like some people are too arrogant to admit I made a mistake. Of course, my wife tells me I do that all the time. But it seems like if you make a mistake, fess up to it and correct it. One of the things we learned from Richard Nixon, it's easier to say, oops, look what I did, rather than to try and hide it, and that's what got him kicked out of office. So I think that's a real problem, is how it's enforced, interpreted and enforced at a lower level outside of the view of the council. And I've talked to you and also Councilman Phillips about, in recent months, about some of the things we've uncovered, and it's not an abnormal thing. It seems to be occurring on a regular basis. And like I said, yesterday I encountered in a discussion with 2 neighbors, two more. How did that happen? So, any other questions?
Any other questions?
Mr. Larry?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent, for coming today. We appreciate it. Based on this structure that you came up with here, is there any municipalities or cities that or parishes that are using it currently like this, that you kind of based it on?
No, it's kind of interesting because it's almost like a parliamentary type of government, you know. But what I was trying to do was address how can we give the council more direct authority over what goes on day to day in administration. And again, even on the number, I'm not smart enough to figure out how many council members we need, and I've expressed thoughts in here from what I'm hearing from the bottom up. I try to be reasonable when I talk to our neighbors, and I catch a lot of flack back, so some of what their opinions are in here about why they don't want this and why this needs to be done, or they don't listen to us, that type of thing. Hopelessness and a lack of trust are two big issues.
Well, I mean, looking at it for the first time today, it's very interesting how the structure would be, and it makes me just kind of think about some possibilities here, and I think that's why it's so critical that the public's here either today or listening, live, to put their input, because that's going to help every single person here kind of look at all angles of this thing to see what looks best for the future of the parish.
I could not attend, but I watched the meeting in which you had the folks from Baton Rouge or St. George come forward and talk about their form of government. And I think another technician came forward and was talking about governments in Louisiana. But again, I'm kind of a believer in one size doesn't fit all. That's what I think is the problem in Washington. They passed one thing. This is a good idea. It was a good idea for your area, but not ours. So it's kind of out of the box thinking what I came up with. And again, I'm not brilliant. Maybe I stumbled into something that will help you all come up with the best answer. But it's another option that you could consider.
I appreciate it. Thank
Great.
Any other questions from committee members? General?
Yes, Mr. Vincent, thank you for coming today, and also for taking the time to put these things together. Obviously, you put a great deal of thought into that. So just some questions to make sure I understand what I'm looking at. Under your option for St. Tammany government structure, there is no parish president.
Correct. There's basically I don't know if you'd call him honorary or acting head, and that is the chair of the council, elected by the council members. And that person could serve for 1 year, 2 years, and that person might get a full salary, or that person might get a higher salary than the other council members, because that individual may be going to ribbon cuttings or up to the legislature to speak on behalf of the parish for some reason. So that job is probably going to require a little more work than I know this is a joke, so don't throw anything at me. That's going to require a little more work than part-time elected officials. So I know your job is a lot more full-time than part-time.
So the council, through the parish manager, is responsible for all aspects of the St. Tammany Parish government.
Correct. Engineering, drainage, everyone would report to the manager, and then the manager in return would be responsible to report to the council. And one of the things that I've found in talking to our council members when we bring up problems is they're at the mercy of the departments in getting answers. They don't have authority to go in and say, what's going on? This is wrong. You need to do this. They have to negotiate through that.
Yes.
In my little simple grunt brain, this is almost like a hybrid police jury, except it's operating under a home rule charter.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Collins?
Yeah, the one thing that in some of the, like the member, the manager format or this format, I like a lot of the aspects of this. This is pretty interesting. The one thing that I don't like I like the check and balance of an alternative elected person that's not in line with another group. It's kind of like, I like the independence of the DA from the sheriff. I like the independence of maybe an executive side from the side that funds the executive side. I kind of, I'm just kind of speaking out loud on, I like the structure. It's good. It's something, it's very interesting. But I kind of wish we'd kind of incorporate a balance of an alternative elected person that is kind of a check and balance on the other side, so we're not all under one.
Yeah, I know this
kind of makes sense.
This is just an off-the-top weird idea, but the public could actually elect the council chair.
Yeah.
So that would give you a parish-wide, one person elected, but still a council member elected from that district. There would be different ways to work it. I mean, I didn't spend a lot of time researching and thinking about this, but listening to your prior meetings and thinking about the issues and knowing what I know day to day trying to interface with government, I was looking for how can we get the checks and balances put in where the council has more say-so over day-to-day operations of government, which they lose. And I know the reasons why, but even the zoning commission and the planning commission, the councilman can't go talk to them. And I know there's a plus and negative side of either one of those factors, but they're not elected by the public. And I tell you what, and again, I'm going to share another experience. I've dragged my wife to a zoning hearing once, along with the rest of my neighbors, and we sat there and listened to both sides of the argument. And she had listened to a number of the cases before the zoning commission, and then when we left, she says, they're just going to do what they want. They don't even listen to what you're saying, even though everybody's got good arguments from their neighborhoods. They just ignore you. And I think that's what I've kind of expressed in the comments below, is the average citizen feels they have no voice.
Mr. Collins, did you answer? You good?
No, and I kind of would wonder if, you know, as we're looking at these different government forms and whatnot, and kind of look at what we have now, are we, and as the body is going to be considering, are we going to change an entire structure, or do we tweak what we have and changing maybe some of the authority of the council and some of the authority of the president to kind of achieve the same objectives without kind of changing the entire structure? I don't know. Just thoughts.
Yeah,
but I appreciate the time.
Again, it's just thinking. So
Yeah. Someone's got to think.
it's a wide open ball game here.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Impastato, hold up. You had a question?
Yeah, not really a question, but I just wanted to make a couple of statements. One, I think it's over 800 counties in the United States are going to some version of a council manager form of government. Seems to be a lot of benefits, but quite often there is a mayor or a parish president, which still is elected parish-wide, which can have the vision for the entire area. That parish president also works with the council. So the structure kind of forces everyone to work together, always. You know, you're setting policy, you're doing ordinances, and you're doing it together. Another big benefit that I like from everything I've read is that it gets the public and the constituents much more involved, and they have much more influence over government on a regular basis. So that was a couple of things that I've read, but there's more. I think it's great work that you did and interesting, and to me, from what I'm seeing, this really seems like a very progressive, viable direction to go into.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity doing consulting work. I had a job with the Oklahoma Municipal Power Authority, and I went to a lot of small towns in Oklahoma, and many of them had a city manager. And I would work with the council, I'd work with the public, I'd work with neighborhood and subdivision organizations, but at some point I had to go back to the city manager and kind of work with them to get everything on the same page. So it's very effective, and a good city manager, I'll give you an example. A bridge needed to be built. The little town didn't have money. The city manager was driving down the highway one day and saw the state taking down a bridge, and they had steel I-beams laying on the side of the road. So he called the highway department. What are you going to do with those steel I-beams? We're going to salvage them. Can I have them for my city? Yes. And the steel I-beams wound up crossing the river that was washed on the bridge that was washed out, and for a nominal amount of money he was able to put a bridge in. Everybody was happy. In another instance, a town didn't have enough money to resurface all the streets, and they have a subsidence problem like south of the lake. All the streets were constantly breaking up, potholes, and the whole road repair budget went to pothole repair, but they didn't have enough money to resurface. So what they did was they divided the city into 4, had a lottery, and all of the road money went to each district on that lottery system over a 4-year period, and they completely blacktopped all the streets in the town. So they went from patching to having at least a 20-year life on the road. So that was kind of an interesting thing. So a good city manager who's experienced and is thinking about and has had experience in managing these things can really come up with some pretty creative ways of solving problems.
Mr. Ernst, do you have a question?
If I'm familiar with the city manager form of government, typically that's associated with a mayor.
Right.
All right. Now, in the county manager, not so much parish in Louisiana, you'll have both. You also have a model where you have a president, maybe termed differently, county executive or something like that, and a county manager. So you got there's iterations on a theme. To follow what Mr. Sims said, one of the things we discussed early on, was either the first meeting or the second meeting, was to achieve balance between the parish executive and the parish council, because it was overweighted to the executive in its current state. All right. So the question, I think, to this body is, if you, between what you presented and maybe something else, there may be some iterations on a theme. And that's the only thing I'd like to propose.
Right. You know, again, I don't have the answer. One of the things that concerned me was you're adding another high-paid position, and I know the finances of the parish. You're adding another high-paid position as a parish manager, and then you still have the president. So what I was looking for is, how can we economically get a leader of the parish without introducing two big salaries into the budget every year?
Yeah.
And again, I want to go back and I want to say this, because my neighbors and I have had meetings with President Cooper, and I find no fault with him. The problem is he cannot know everything that's going on 24 hours a day in every one of his departments, whether it's inspections, permits, or whatever it is. So things are happening below him, and it's only when it hits the fan that he finds out about it. So that was part of my thinking, and how can we streamline this to connect the council members directly to the departments, where they can pick up the phone and talk to somebody, and that department will know, uh-oh, this guy's got control over me through the parish manager, and I better listen to what he's saying or answer the question and not goof off with an answer. So,
Mr. Impastato, you had another question or
I
comment?
just wanted to say, I reached out to an organization called the International City County Management Association. Tulane University has a chapter. The young man I spoke to is Jason Grant, who is the Director of Advocacy, and he agreed for our next meeting to come and give us a presentation. It may be Zoom, but we can ask more questions and maybe read up and get some more details on how it would work.
Very good. Jack, we want to thank you. We are very grateful and appreciative of you bringing the information, and tell those homeowners that we do want to continue to hear from them in respect to this committee and how we proceed. So thank you.
and again, I want to thank all of you for your hard work, and I know a lot of it's unappreciated, and I'm kind of in an in-between position between your constituents and me, and I can't always logically explain or convince people to take a reasonable point of view, and they just, this is it, I don't like it, and that's it. So I think we all have to do a better job of explaining options and reasoning to the public. Thanks again.
We appreciate it. Thank you so much. We have, Ms. Stevens, you wanted to make a comment about the composition?
I do.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
I listened to last month's meeting. I apologize. I wasn't able to attend, but I did enjoy the comments. First off, I am a board member of mosquito abatement, so I want to cordially invite every single one of you to mosquito abatement. We're having a meeting on a regular monthly meeting on the 16th of April at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You're more than welcome to attend some of it. I really think you need to. I think it would be very advantageous too if you would come when we have an open house. I believe it's going to be in April. I'm not sure the date, but I'll let you know. Because I think that it would really behoove all of you to understand what happens at mosquito abatement and how the tax money is spent there, how the board is made up, how the board operates, and the job that is done by the people of mosquito abatement. I think it's really important, but you have to go through that process and visit them, take the time to understand what they do, I think, before you make judgments about them at all. Now, to the matter at hand, you're talking about composition, and I've watched several meetings, I've been here to several meetings, and I had to back up and wonder, how did we get here? Why are we here? Who asked for a re-evaluation of the council makeup? Did the people ask for it? Did you do a survey? Are you overwhelmingly hearing that anybody wants this? My understanding is people like the accessibility of their council person. So if you reduce it down to 7 or 8 or 9 or even 10 and 2, you are exponentially loading not only the council person, but their staff, who they did not elect, to do the job. But bigger than that, let's go even bigger than that, because now that I'm hearing about city managers, I heard Tommy Buckles' presentation. I too have worked all over the country, lots of different forms of government, and I can't say that a city manager is doing anything that the parish president doesn't do right now. Right now in our form of government, we've got a parish president, all the departments underneath them, and a parish council who serves a lot like a board. The parish president makes the policy, they create the budget, they set up their departments, they run their departments, and it oddly is a lot like architecture. You have an owner, an architect, and a contractor. As the architect, which I am, I get my instructions from the owner, in this case the parish president. I create a set of drawings, and I hand them off to the contractor. I cannot tell them the means and methods by which they accomplish their goal. I can hold them accountable at the end, but I can't tell them how to do what they need to do. So I'm hearing lots of complaints, and you're thinking that a city manager would correct those complaints, when perhaps having a meeting or regular meetings with either the council chair, isn't that the council chair's job, is to act sort of as the representative for the council? Does the council chair meet with the parish president on a regular basis or a semi-regular basis to work out conflicts? I mean, you have to know what the conflicts are that Joe's talking about, that the residents talk about. You all watch the meetings. So instead of blowing up the entire process, my suggestion is that the committee go back and look at, why are you here even spending all this inordinate amount of time talking about changing it all, when to Jack's point, there might just be some tweaks that need to be made so that everybody understands what their lane is, and to understand there are checks and balances now. You have a parish president who governs all of his people. You have your control, which is the board. You get to control the budget right now. It's not like the police jury, which is what it sounds like some of the council wants to go back to. And Mr. Davis, you could probably explain why that didn't succeed and you became the first parish president.
I could. So are you finished now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I do want to, just so everybody understands, because I've heard this before and I don't really, so I'd like to just read it. There was a resolution passed by the parish council the first day of August, and it was to establish a home rule charter advisory committee and designate those members. And actually it says in the resolution, which I have a copy of, for them to look at and make a review of the home rule charter. So I think, so I don't want anybody to be misunderstood because we talk about composition or we talk about any particular items. What we're doing is actually going through the charter, each one of the items, as per what we were requested to do, which is interesting enough because everybody voted for it except 2 were absent. So our job was just to look at the charter. So when you ask us, why are we looking at 30 members or 15 members, that's why.
But the charters, we're focusing, there's a hyper focus right now on one particular aspect, and I just don't see where it came from.
Focusing, but you know, I don't think so. I think we've been going through it. We spent 1 meeting on the composition. So now I've just said earlier, and I think I got a consensus that we kind of are finished with that.
And we moved on.
And we're moving on now.
Okay.
And nobody made a motion to add 20 members or reduce members. So that's kind of where we're at.
Okay,
but I appreciate
good.
your comments.
Oh, okay. Thanks so
you.
much. And the invitation holds. I hope to see all of you at the next mosquito abatement meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
1 o'clock in the afternoon? Is that when the meeting you said is?
It is, kind of like this one was at 2:30.
What?
Yeah.
Huh?
You made it sound like it was kind of odd that it was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
No, I would like to attend, but it's just up in the middle of the day, so I would like to.
Kind of like this. Yeah, I would love for you to come. We'll send you an invitation, email.
Yeah, so just with the mosquito abatement district, it's its own fiefdom, correct?
It's not a fiefdom.
It's
No,
its own thing.
It's a dedicated tax. It's a dedicated tax, a dedicated entity, and it has its own board, much like all of the fire districts.
Right, but focus on the mosquitoes. You're on the board now?
I am.
Okay, and how many board members, I'm just curious, are on there while you're here?
5.
5. And then there's, you guys, we have a person who runs the mosquito abatement district, correct?
A director.
A director, and then he deploys the assets of the dedicated funds.
Correct, according to what the board approves.
In your, what oversight does the parish council have over the mosquito abatement district and how the money is spent?
They don't.
Thank you.
Great, thank you so much for the comment. I have any other comments from the members? I would like to, Glenn is, he don't want to talk. Okay, good, all right. Then that's all we had. So, go ahead, Arthur.
Forgive me, y'all. I can't turn my light on because I'm in the clerk's position. So I would like to support my colleague, Mr. Impostato's idea that we research this, but combine it with District Attorney Sims' idea to figure out if we wanted to investigate making changes, is it something we could do internally without making major changes or revolutionary changes and things like that. So I think we should spend some time looking into that and listening from the gentleman from Tulane University for the next time.
For our next meeting.
Yeah.
And so the members know, I'd ask staff, could we host these meetings on both sides of the parish without costing any more money or anything like that? Because I know we have the Towers building, and they just told me today that we could. So if it's okay with the members, we'd like to host our next meeting in Slidell at the Towers building at 6 p.m. And got a motion? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So it will be the same day and the same time, but it will not be at Coop. We're going to go, Jerry, to your district.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good. All right. As I went through the Article 2, Joe, you're going to get with the gentleman and have him work out the details for more discussion. And certainly members, email us or with any of your comments or research that you would like to have done. I'd like to move on and say that there's really no issues with these items. Certainly if there was some change in the form of government, there might be. But as they're written right now, everybody's fine. Is that safe to say? And we're going to move to the Section 9 for the record. That's independent audit. So I'd give you a minute to read 2.09 in reference to the annual independent audit.
Can we go back to 6108?
Certainly.
Ms. Cheryl, would you press your light?
Actually, that's where I should have started. I went to 9 because we did 6. We should have went to 8. Sorry.
Okay. The council may investigate. I think this needs to be, and I'm not sure, I know we have a lot of lawyers here, so they can help me. I think the council needs to, this needs to be added to so the council can subpoena and have more powers of investigation on things that come up. I don't know how to change this as such, but I know we ran into a problem 2 or 3 years ago where this was questioned as to how far the council could go, and I would like to see this changed so it would give us the power to do that.
Okay. Yeah. Good point. I think that's one of the items one of our first meetings we kind of threw out there and discussed. Arthur, you got a question?
Yeah, I would just like to add to my colleague, Mrs. Tanner, we also need to, in that theme, we need to allocate resources or like a model on how to do it and how we should have one, because I think we had launched our first investigation in my first year as council, but we didn't have any resources to hire attorneys or to do anything like that.
Right.
Whatever we need to do. And then Mr. Roll.
So,
Okay.
may I call you Emily? Is Emily? I'm sorry? And Larry, I'll be right with you. I just want to ask a question in reference to, could you help us, you understand kind of the comments? Could you help us in reference to research?
Sure, absolutely. And it is something that was brought up with the prior council investigation, and there really needs to be a procedure that's spelled out in order to conduct those investigations. Whether we do that through the charter and spell that out in the charter, or whether we do it by ordinance, it needs to be addressed one way or the other. But it's definitely something that I can help research. And
Great. I would suggest, and I'll let the committee members decide too, that it's in the charter, because it gets confusing a lot of times with some of the verbiage. So that would be my suggestion, that it actually be in the charter. So that the next group, 20 years from now, they look at it, they know what it is. I'm sorry, Larry?
Basically, I was going to ask the same question.
Yeah.
But on that note, Emily, do you see anything just on the surface right now, just by the question from Ms. Tanner, that would be any type of concern, that we would need to think a little bit deeper right now before we move into the next possibilities on that? Like, does anything kind of ring a bell that we need to kind of think about?
Well, when this came up before, besides calling the investigation, there was no process set forth anywhere in the code or in the charter that explained how this process would actually come about. Who conducts the investigation? How is it conducted? What resources are available to conduct the investigation? So those things really need to be explained, spelled out in a charter amendment or in an ordinance, which was recommended by our office when this first came about.
So this, to me, 2.08 seems like a really good candidate for a change, for sure.
Yeah.
That I don't think the public would, I mean, obviously the public is going to have the last say-so with the full council first, but then the public, I mean, to me, this would really make sense, because right now it just seems like there's a lot of confusion on it anyway, but thank you.
Ms. LeBlanc?
Yes. We keep talking about, and I'm hearing that, you know, we're digging into and we are going to get some research information. But I think we just need to cast a wider net, such as getting another study done. I don't know how the one that, what was it, BGR had done in 2002. But I don't know what the process is to get another one started, but it seems like we're really at that point of where, you know, so much has changed. We had Katrina to hit in 2005 that really kind of, you know, changed some things up that may have been forecasted in that study. So I'm hearing that, you know, we want to go into some research, and I'm having questions, and I'm listening to the public, and they are wondering, how did we get here? Why are we doing this? And it's not just this month, but, you know, last month too. So just to get some surveys, some data behind us when we are looking at some of these categories. And as much as I love the fact that we're going through the charter, taking each one step by step, I enjoyed that, but I would also like to get the input from, say, the public or even the staff or the officials, and have that information compiled so we would have data to support some of the questions that we may be having as we go through the charter. So whatever that process was to get the 2002 research study done, can we go ahead and get something along those lines started, since it is over 20 years old?
I can certainly talk to them at BGR.
Thank you.
The only,
Okay.
Yeah, I'll talk to them, and I'll report back to you and let you know what we hear.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, that would be great.
Mr. Collins is next.
Okay.
Is this mine?
Me? I would think for the investigations, Emily, it seems like if we added a simple addition there, that the council has the ability to contract for professional services in order to execute all things described in there for purposes of conducting an investigation, that would probably go a long way to clear that up, so that, you know, no one would expect that you guys who are, you know, working part-time on the council would also be executing the own functions of whatever investigative capacity that you have, and that it's clearly spelled out for purposes of executing this function, which is laid out, that you can contract for professional services to execute what's described here. Seems like that would be.
I think it's a good recommendation, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's been an issue. How do they contract out?
Yeah, and honestly, to be able to contract to execute this, that would leave our office out of it, would then avoid other conflicts that may develop as a result of having to advise people legally, but also not be in charge of the investigation into one body over the other. That could be separately contracted out.
Yeah, good point.
I think that's where a lot of the conflict kind of theoretically arose at different points in time. And
Yeah.
I think that would be a way to avoid that, much simpler than changing, in the isolated times where this has to be executed and done and carried out, we could avoid the other conflicts maybe that way as well.
Good point. Larry?
Oh, sure.
I'm sorry. Joe, you're next.
No,
You're not.
And then Cheryl.
Okay.
Earlier, one of the meetings, 3 or 4 meetings ago, we talked about the possibility of an inspector general. And if that bill is passed at the state level, and that's now it's going to go for a vote in the committee, and it's adopted by St. Tammany Parish, then it's possible that with that kind of an inspector general's office, they could do an investigation for the council. Because they will have all these things that are in this paragraph, subpoena authority, and so forth. The only difference is, added to that, they will have the ability to follow St. Tammany generated tax money regardless of where it goes, with no exception.
It's a good point. I didn't think about it at the time, but yes, I don't know.
I think the IG is limited, though, in what it can track.
They can only track.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has more limitations than everyone realizes of what it can track. It can only track the spending of parish government, right? So, as an example, the mosquito abatement district is independent, right? So it doesn't have any oversight of parish government. It does what it wants to do, obviously with the constraints of the law. But that money is not controlled, reviewed, or doesn't flow through parish government, and so it can't be, as I understand it, presently written, inspected by the Inspector General. If the way I read it written previously, as far as parish government, right? Because
I have a question, and maybe you.
I have to have it in front of me, though. Yes, sir.
Civil could look at that.
Yeah.
If I'm sure, you dealt with the finances when we were here for years. And all of those report their annual reports into the consolidated annual report of the parish government. So I was wondering if that doesn't give you any legal aspect.
It's a requirement from the legislative auditors.
Just for them to be a part.
That they be combined. There is nothing that the auditor has said that it needs to be connected.
Okay.
The other thing I will tell you is that this Inspector General was taken up at the meeting last Thursday night, and it was passed that if it's put in place by the state, it would have to go to the council for a vote of the people, and a funding source, independent funding source, would have to be designated by the people to do this, because the parish does not have the monies to spend $1 million or whatever on an inspector general. I thought that this was a way to give us, with help of the DA's office, to give us some leeway in doing investigations and give us the tools that the council needs. I like the idea of writing the procedures, but also it probably needs to say if the council passes it, the administration must pay the bill. They must pay our expenses. That is not up for discussion. So how that needs to be put in here, I would like to see it.
Okay, well, you're going to help us with some research language and what you recommend. It doesn't have to be for next month if we need more time, because it may take a while for you to, with all the duties you have to do, make sure that
It needs to let the council chairman sign the contract and forward the invoice over for payment, and amend the budget to put it in there so that the people would be paid.
Gotcha. Okay. Arthur, you had a comment?
Yeah, I had a quick comment, just that in line with Councilwoman Tanner is saying, that, and with General Ernst, there is a little bit of difference between an investigation, which is usually internal to our government. It's usually us investigating our own government, versus something that the Inspector General hopefully will have the power to do once that legislation is enacted. But just to explain for those who don't know, we have the power. It's almost like an unfunded mandate. We have the power to investigate without the ability to investigate. So without a mechanism and plan. And so I think District Attorney Sims, what you said was very valuable. If we put that language in, that probably will solve the problem.
Great.
And then Larry's got his mic on.
Larry, you had another question, comment?
I do. Based on that BGR study, I know, I think it was mentioned that it was 2002. So I know we 13 years, difference now. So when we did talk to them, you're going to go ahead and talk to them, you said, about it?
Meriwether, yes.
I guess the question is the funding for that study.
That's going to be their issue. I didn't want to say anything now, but certainly all that's going to be.
So obviously, I know you're going to ask that question, but also, maybe the flip side of it is, because I know Ms. Stevens comes up and talks about things that, why are we doing this? Mr. Vincent has some ideas, and we've heard both sides. We've heard people that maybe are in favor. It's time. The business community is saying it's time, right, for some changes on the council makeup. That's where we get our information, is just from all over. I mean, it's from some constituents, and then some constituents has other ideas. It's the business community seeing what the future is going to look like for this parish as it has grown so large since like 2005. So I guess the question is, when you find out the payment of that, just like any other study. Do we like studies? Do we like spending money on studies? I don't think anybody's in favor of that necessarily, but sometimes it's necessary, right? And maybe the timing is now for that study, regardless if it comes through an agency, another agency like BGR, or does it come back to St. Tammany Parish, doing this for the constituents? Are we there now to see a study that we are going to have to spend some money for, but it might answer some of those questions that you say, is it really necessary? Or maybe it really is, maybe it really isn't. So that being said, more about I know you're going to find out from them about the funding source of that, but maybe really even after we get the answer from that, because believe me, we would love for them to fund it, right? But if maybe not, do we look at it as a council to see, maybe we go down to that direction and see what really the study shows? Because I don't think really anybody knows from 2002. So many things have changed. But again, that could be an avenue.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you, sir.
I'll ask those questions and report back. Any other comments in reference to this particular 2.08 investigations? We are going to make some changes, and we'll hear back from staff. Okay? Item 209, independent audit. It says that the council shall provide an annual independent audit, which I think you all do today, correct? Do you all hire? Mary?
Do it again, Mary, I'm sorry.
Yes, actually, this year in the budget cycle, we made sure the council did have more control over that audit cycle. That money is now budgeted out of the council's budget to make sure that we are making sure it's an independent audit instead of, within, which will help with our granting funding. So
Okay.
yes, we do
Any to get where you got today took 25 years. So let me ask a question. Should we tweak any of this? Is there anything that was a stumbling block that?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean,
Okay.
it was very easy. So when I came to be council administrator, first thing I did was, I've read the charter before, working here for 15 years, but you read it again because you get
Right.
something every time. And when we saw that was a very easy fix and conversation, and I don't think it's going to be an issue going forward.
Okay, great. Any comments from members? Arthur?
Mary, just a quick housekeeping question.
Yeah.
So just since we're on the theme of professional services, do we already have the professional services authority to hire that? Like let's say we want to just pick a new agency to do it. Do we have the power to do that?
So this professional service isn't necessarily advertised and chosen every year. You know, we can do extensions of contracts, and I believe we did not go through that process this year, but in the past when we do, there's a council member who does sit on that committee to help choose the person. And then, I know I'm getting to it. I'm just making sure everyone understands the process of how this is chosen. So right now, no, the council does not have authority to sign professional service contracts, but I think if you look in, if you wouldn't mind flipping to section 3-09. Let me find the one I'm looking for. Number 5. So if you go to section 3-09 and go to number 5, it says one of the powers and duties of the president and to sign contracts for projects, equipment, professional services, and materials and supplies specifically identified in the approved budgeting and capital improvement budget or as specifically identified by ordinance. So how I personally read that, interpret it, if there's a specific ordinance that the council passes that says we're hiring this person for this professional service, then the parish president has to sign that.
If I could ask a follow-up. So I see the potential of a conflict because you mentioned, so this is something that, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is something we're supposed to do independent of the administration, is we do an independent audit. So I believe that the people who pick who the auditor is that decision and that process should be exclusive to the council only.
Absolutely, that would require charter change.
Right, because right now, there's a council person who sits on the committee, but there's not a council person who makes, the council does not make that decision.
Correct.
So, just so the audience, and the greater audience knows outside on TV, the council does not choose any of the vendors that the parish hires. So we have no say-so. So if this is supposed to be an independent audit that we sign off on, it should be expressly written that we are the ones who choose who that auditor or that auditor firm is.
If that's what you want, yes, that would require
it would need to be made, correct? That's my question. Thank you.
Well, that was the original intent when we did this originally, was for that checks and balances, was for the council to have that independent audit of what we or others were doing in the government. So does everybody understand the discussion? So I certainly would. Ms. Stevens, do you want to make a comment in reference to it? All right.
As mentioned, I'm a board member of mosquito abatement, and I've only been on there, I don't know, a year. Just about a year. And when I came in the door, most of the older board had left. And anybody who knows me knows that I am hypercritical of taxes. And they are a dedicated tax, which I'm a huge fan of, because it's a tax for a specific reason. That's all. No bleed over, can't give it away. You either use it, you hold it, whatever, you spend it. What I did when I walked in the door was to say, I want a forensic audit. And the room fell quiet. Because when you say forensic audit, I had to be taught, it suggests some type of wrongdoing, and I had no basis to suggest anything of the sort. But my nomenclature, or my rudimentary understanding of audits was forensic. We need to look at everything. So what I'm here to suggest is, and here's how we ended up handling it, we had a CPA come in to help educate me and the rest of the board. For those who know, every year all the entities have to turn in a CPA governed or generated audit. It goes to the LLA, but it's only a cursory review of all sorts of areas. It's not a deep dive into anything. They have their minimum mandate and they follow that, and that's it. And if there's something that's out of the ordinary, that's not punitive, they don't do anything about it, they don't turn you in unless it's something super egregious, but when the legislative auditor comes back, they come back with guidelines on how to let you do things better. Well, so since the forensic audit was off the table, what we learned was you can do an enhanced audit, which means they do a much deeper dive than normal. Of course, that costs a little bit more money, but they'll go much deeper than the 5 credit card receipts or whatever the rudimentary amount is. And then I also asked that they go at least a year prior to when I got there, because I knew then I was responsible to the taxpayers and President Cooper, who appointed me, to answer for whatever the district was going to do, and in this case, whatever they had done to bring us to the point that I was there taking over as treasurer. So we did that, and it came up minimal. There was one area where something was supposed to be categorized one way and it was categorized another way, which we rectified. The other thing we did, to the point that was just made, was we specified that we were not going to use the same auditing firm that we had used previously, because there again, we wanted no paper trail, we wanted fresh eyes on it. So what I'm going to suggest right now is that in the charter, you consider every 5 years to do that deep dive. You don't have to necessarily go back a year, but if you want to, you can. But a different auditor looking at that information will have that fresh look. They don't have that relationship with you. They don't have any relationship with anybody on the board or the directors or anybody else. So there's no reason why the parish council couldn't just build that into the charter, sort of like the home rule charter review every however many years. But you could set that up on an automatic trigger, so it's not personal. You just do it. Every 5 years, you do an enhanced audit, and that would be my suggestion
Great.
for you going forward.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Sure.
Arthur, you had a question?
Yeah, Ms. Lewis-Stevens, I had a quick question for you.
Sure.
So when you did, though, you as a mosquito abatement board member, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. You had the authority to choose another vendor.
I think what we did was put it out for public bid.
Well,
Yeah.
there was a process, though, for you to initiate it. What I was trying to point out was, at the current level, the council does not have that power. The council has the responsibility to do an independent audit, but we do not have a power to choose who does that audit.
But you could stipulate that
That's
it
why-
can't be
Right.
the prior, it
Yeah,
can't
and
be
then
anyone you've used in the last 2
Yeah.
years, 5 years, 10 years. You could set that parameter if you wanted to make sure that you're not getting
Yeah.
somebody that is already has eyes on the paperwork.
Somebody
if
giving
know
you
what
a
I mean.
carbon copy of it from last year.
Exactly, and that's what you want to avoid, because you want to have a fresh look and make sure everything is copacetic, and that's what I would recommend.
Thank you.
I have Ms. Tanner, Ms. Hayes.
Well, no, Ms. Hayes, then Ms. Tanner. I'm sorry.
Okay, number one. I'm sorry. Ms. Hayes is first, then Cheryl.
I just wanted to mention that St. Tammany Parish Government does do the enhanced audit by the LLA every year.
Great to know. Number two, Ms. Tanner.
Yes, and also every 5 years, they do an RFP. Gina, correct me if I'm wrong, an RFP to take in audit firms' proposals, and those are reviewed. Now, I think only one member, I've never sat on that, but I think right now we're somewhere in the 5-year track on that. But I think it should be changed that the council,
Makes that
I don't
decision.
mind if the RFP is put out by the parish president's office, but I think it should come to the council or members of the council to enact.
Thank you, Ms. Tanner. Mr. Impastato?
Oh, Ms. Gina.
And then Mr. Ernst.
I just wanted to mention that the last time the charter was reviewed, Ms. Stevens, was 2014, 15, and it is best practices to review it every 10 years. So that was the main trigger to get this done, or to reconvene this committee.
Great, thank you. Mr. Ernst?
In 2016, when they had the first IG committee appointed by the state, the outcome of that was to ask the LLA to do a forensic audit every year, and that was changed to an enhanced audit, as was just said, and the agreement was then, just to reinforce the point. That was the 2016, I believe was the date that they did that.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments?
Ms. Gina had her mic on.
Ms. Hayes, you have another one?
Yes, I just wanted to verify a couple of things. The council by resolution annually appoints the auditor, and the council chairman signs the audit engagement letter. The parish solicits every CPA firm within the parish for they're directly solicited every year. Not every year, but each one is directly solicited. So I just wanted to point that out, that the council chairman does review the evaluations and does approve the auditor.
Yeah. Great, but is it a consensus of the committee that you want to see some language in here that the council takes that? I'm seeing heads nodding. Is it?
I think the council members, it should probably be 1 or 2 administrative and maybe 3 chair, vice chair, whatever, review, and finance chairman review review and make the decision with them.
Would it be okay, Mary, if you all could draft something for next meeting that kind of summarize this discussion? And I think what I'm hearing is, even though Gina did very well with explaining it, I think that the council will put it out. Or the administration would put it out?
I think administration would put it out because they have the procurement department, but I think it'd be appropriate to make sure maybe to say that council chairman or vice chairman and the director of finance or whoever, we can talk that through, should be the evaluators to make sure council has input on that evaluation.
Ms. LeBlanc.
Okay. I just want, just for my understanding, I know you have the procurement department, but I just want to make sure that I'm understanding it when what I heard were vendors that the government uses, that those contracts are presented before the council or they are not presented before the council, irregardless of the dollar amount.
They're not. Today, they're presently, Gina, they're not, right?
So they're directly solicited. Every CPA firm in the parish is directly solicited for a proposal. Those proposals are then reviewed by the committee. The committee has at least 1 council member on it. I understand what you want. You want more than 1 person from the council. So I understand. I'm just telling you what currently exists. What currently exists is at least 1 person is on the council. Once the committee, all of the proposals are scored, then it goes to the council chairman for review and approval, and the council votes on it by resolution, and the council chairman signs the engagement letter. So that's the way it's done right now. So, I mean, if this committee decides to add more council members or to that committee, or wants to solely take over that committee, you know, that's something that would be addressed in the chart, that we could be addressing in this charter change. But I'm just letting you know how it's done right now.
Yeah, we appreciate it, Carl. Mr. Ernst?
Just to follow on, I understand that the committee has 1 council representative on the committee. So the question, I think, is more pertinent is who has decision authority?
Everyone on the committee scores each of the proposals, and then the highest scoring proposal wins, and that's what's presented to the council for resolution for ultimately the council chairman to sign.
Yeah, so the council says 1 of 3, and if it's requested by the council, if it's something the council asks for, the council does not get to make the decision. The committee does.
The committee makes the decision on who is chosen.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's probably.
let me correct that. The council makes a decision based on who scored the highest, and they make that recommendation to the parish president. The parish president ultimately makes the decision, but he chooses the one who scores the highest. But
usually not necessarily always.
The council wants to score.
Not, right. The council wants, yes, ultimately the parish president does choose the person, but he always chooses the highest score. Could he choose someone else? I guess technically he could, but he would have to explain why he didn't choose the highest score. And I can tell you that just doesn't happen, hasn't happened. Could it? I guess possibly.
One of the things we're trying to achieve is balancing between the executive and the council, and this is something for the council. They ask for it. Then the council ought to be the decision maker.
And that's something that would have to be changed in the charter.
So we're going to get some drafts, and we'll be back to discuss that in Slidell at the next meeting. Great, thank you. Item 210, council employees, I think it self-explanatory. I think, anybody got an issue? 210? This is a vote majority authorizing membership and also. Item 211, action requiring an ordinance. I think it's pretty well spelled out. Council members, if you know of a particular area in there that's conflict, let us know. Ordinances in general, submission of ordinance to the president. I've never seen a problem yet. Have you, Gina, with submittals? Emergency ordinances.
Ms. Tanner has her light on.
I'm sorry, Ms. Tanner.
I'm sorry, I'm a problem child
No,
today.
no.
Yes, the council has enacted resolutions and ordinances, I would say 95, 96% of the time. The parish president and administration does that, but there's some that we have passed, such as capital outlay, a list of capital outlay, certain information, and we do not get it. So I don't know how we can change this to say that when the council passes it,
Well,
it needs
okay.
to be done.
I would have to say, I'm just giving you an explanation. Resolutions don't have the weight of law. So resolutions are a statement of, this is what we'd like.
So we need everything in ordinance.
Yes, so the parish president can like them too, or he can not like them. I mean, you know, and I think that, yeah, I don't know how you would really need to. So your resolution was, please apply for a grant? I'm just making this up.
Please give the council the capital outlay list.
Documents.
If we do a bonding issue, we would like the capital outlay for the parish.
Yeah. No, he doesn't have to give them to you. We'll just be, it doesn't have to. It's a resolution. So I'm not trying to be argumentative.
No,
I'm
that's
just
fine.
saying.
So you're telling me that anything like that we need to pass by ordinance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And then
An ordinance is law. It's not.
And I'm not being ugly, but
No.
when we ask for things, you know, there's a reason why we're asking. And, you know, just to ignore us does not help out. So what I'm trying to do with this charter is put in place so the council, when they ask for something or when they need something, and I think the general said it best, trying to get us on the same level, whatever it takes.
Yeah. Legal, please, if I'm wrong, let me know, but I always, resolutions were the will. They were not, they're not law. I mean.
No, that's correct. I guess maybe what Ms. Cheryl is trying to say is there something that we can add to this provision related to actions requiring ordinance that would require administration to provide certain information that you're requesting? Is that?
Right, so what I'm hearing is instead of doing a resolution, we do an ordinance, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be one way. I'd hate to think that you'd have to do that all the time unless we can write something in here that says.
To have to do that all the time.
Yeah.
But, you know,
I don't know how you
I
could.
think the other council members would.
Colin, help me out here. I don't know how you could write, please do this. You know what I'm saying? Do you? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So the answer is ordinance at this point. If you'd like to do more research, please do and let us know. Any other discussion on that? Emergency ordinances. I thought I saw some tweaks to the one of your ordinances. Were there any changes made in reference to that? When we had Katrina, I kept renewing ordinances, emergency ordinances. And actually, it was interesting. I'll just tell you the story. It was interesting because we actually had to continue that for almost 2 years. And we ended up in some litigation, and I'll never forget, the judge asked us, how do you have an emergency situation 2 years later? And I only bring that up kind of for maybe legal to look at. The thought process, Katrina was a major, major storm, so there was a lot of details that had to go into that needed that executive order to accomplish some of the task, even 16 months later. And I know it said it could no longer than 30 days. We did it for 2 years.
The emergency ordinances can be extended. They just can't be extended for more than 30 days at a time. So you can have them for 360 days. You just have to renew them in 30-day increments.
So that's the way you would understand that what we did was okay. We just kept renewing them every 30 days.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
To make
Even
sure that
though-
there is a continuing emergency.
Yeah. I mean, even though, 2 years later, the sun's shining and it's beautiful outside, and there was some litigation about somebody ran into one of our trucks, and we had my attorneys who said, well, we're still in emergency situations by emergency order.
And an emergency order is different than an emergency ordinance. An emergency ordinance just allows the council to act without complying with all of the very strict provisions of
Correct.
open meetings law. So it allows the council to act more quickly and get around some of the provisions in Section 212 requiring that 7-day layover period. And I don't know if we're going back to Section 212, but
Yeah.
that's something that we've run into continuously, is any ordinance has to be introduced and then lay over for 7 days before the council can take action on it. Well, that used to be more feasible when we had a daily paper that was the official journal and was publishing every day. But now the official journal publishes once a week. And in order to get something published, we have to give it to them a week before that.
Yeah.
So our time constraints for getting something to our official journal are extremely limiting in what the council can do. And really, the emergency ordinance provision is the only thing that allows the parish to act outside of those provisions from 212. So I don't know if that's something that the Charter Committee wants to consider in light of not having a daily paper running as our official
That's a
journal.
good point, yeah. I mean, you just never know what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, we had
Right.
a BP spill. We had all kinds of things when I was in office. Gina, you're up.
Yes, I just wanted to. Thanks. I just wanted to also clarify a little bit further what Emily was saying. There's a big difference between an emergency ordinance and an emergency declaration.
Yeah.
An emergency ordinance has to do with council action. Also, like some of the rules of procurement can be escaped when you have an emergency ordinance, but those also require an emergency declaration as
Yes,
well,
yeah.
and that's for a state of emergency. So it's just two different things, but they kind of usually work hand in hand.
Hand in hand, yeah. Well, we may want to give it some thought in reference to the issue of not thinking that we would ever not have a paper. I mean, this things happen. Colin, I'm sorry?
Emily, where does it, or does it need to be defined, the different terms when we use the words emergency? Is that in here? Then I just don't know where it is.
So, I mean, if you look at the beginning of 214A, a public emergency affecting life, health, property, or public safety, it's not defined beyond that. But it generally needs to be spelled out in the ordinance itself what the emergency is that requires it to fall within these provisions.
Do you see any need to refine what is a qualifying emergency? If not, don't worry about it. I'm just something to think about.
Those are pretty broad categories, I agree.
Yeah.
But really, we've seen all kinds of different issues that have come up, and it's hard to anticipate what might come up. A freeze that burst pipes, an overspill of a tanker truck. It's really hard to think of all the circumstances to limit that definition further.
Another example was when Katrina hit, our funding cycles, everything was messed up. So we had to borrow money from a bond issue for a specific purpose.
Right.
I don't remember what it was for, but there was a lot of internal discussion about, is it legal to do that? But we were broke, we couldn't pay anybody, so we had to do it, you
Right.
know? Certainly, we paid the money right back when we got the revenues going. So I don't know, Emily, if any of that needs to be tweaked.
So the broadness is more helpful and
Yeah.
less subject to abuse, more helpful than,
Yeah.
And we have to remember that overarching, beyond our charter, we also have our open meetings law. And the council cannot act as subterfuge for
Right.
open meetings law. So you can't call something an emergency ordinance and it not be a real emergency, because in that case, you run the risk of having a lawsuit filed against you to undo whatever that action is.
Right.
So we do have to remember that there is an overarching set of laws that help to govern the council's actions as well.
Okay. Arthur?
I have a question for Emily. Since the farmer only prints once a week now, and it requires an extra week lead time to advertise, is it time that or am I opening Pandora's box? And stop me if I am. Is it time for us to consider alternative ways to publish stuff?
So that's what I was looking up to see exactly what open meetings law says in terms of requiring publication in an official journal, because I think that you may be handcuffed there by state law.
Understood. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion on that? 214, 215, Codes of Technical Regulations. It's pretty much talking about adopting ordinance shall be recorded by the clerk, so recording of ordinances. 216, power to levy taxes. Some people might want to get rid of that, but powers of enforcement. Does the parish council have power to grant franchises, require license permits and fixed fees, compensation? Any discussion there? We'll go to Article 3, Executive Branch, the executive authority. Just stop me and if you have a question. Item 3.02 is the election. 03 of the qualification. It's must live within with the parish for at least 3 years, and you have to be 18. Forfeiture of office, vacancy.
General Ernst.
General Ernst, I'm sorry.
You have the risk of being burned as a heretic. It just strikes me that 18 years old for the chief executive of the parish is a little young, and they can't even get a beer at 18 years old. So we might want to consider 21, but I can't.
It's up.
The risk of being burned as a heretic.
No, I understand you said. I spoke at a group the other day of 100-some people, and many of them thought that they should have some qualifications. I think that then you get into the rights of being able to run for office. I think I think anybody ought to be able to run for office, and the public makes that decision. But they had a good point, because they said, well, if you do a parish manager, like even this one has to have a master's degree. So it's interesting that if we're going to have somebody work for you, they got to have a master's degree. But that's just my opinion. I don't know if anybody else. Larry?
Yeah, my thought is probably voting age of 18, right?
Just keep it.
Well, no, I'm thinking about the older with qualifications per se, but I think it's probably 18 based because you can start voting at 18.
I think that was the thought back then when
That's
we did
probably the thought, but, the right to, become a candidate
Yeah.
because you can vote at 18.
Pat? Push your button.
I understand what you're saying about 18, but there are elected offices you have to be older, right? Congress or whatever. I know there are higher offices, but don't you have to be a certain age before you can run? other than 18. So, I mean.
Yeah, that's true. Arthur?
And then Colin.
And then Colin.
Yeah, I think that would, if that's something we want to pursue, but I also think this 18-year-old is probably something we opened up when they moved the voting age down to 18. So but you're right, Pat, like the president, you have to have a certain, in order to be the president of the United States, you have to be a certain age.
Mr. Collins?
On the 3.02 for the election.
Yes, sir.
It talks about 3 consecutive terms, and it doesn't seem, the language is not clear on whether or not the intent was to cap it no more than 3 terms, period, whether consecutive or not consecutive. And if the intent is to have no more than 3 terms, then I think a tweak needs to be made to where it says 3 terms in total, whether consecutive or not. Is my observation. It lacks clarity. It seems to me that my recommendation would be, is that parish president should not serve more than 3 terms, if that's the intent, consecutive or not consecutive, unless you guys don't want that. But if you want term limits, then it should read 3 terms total, whether consecutive or not consecutive.
Who's next? I got staff. Mary, did you have your button?
I was just
Okay.
pointing out that there is very good case law that says that the consecutive language means 3 terms total, even though it says consecutive. I do agree that it's unclear because I had to look up the case law myself when I read it. But just to let you all know that there is very good case law that says 3 consecutive terms means 3 terms total, whether they run consecutively or not.
And I guess my question is, should we just go ahead and clean it up and not have to interpret case law? If we're going to make changes to the charter, that'd be something we should just clean up.
Yes, I agree. I just don't want there to be any confusion that that's not how it's interpreted currently.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. I agree with you because I didn't know that was case law.
Press your button.
Charter, didn't it start all over again?
I'm sorry?
The number 3 consecutive terms, didn't it start over?
No.
It didn't?
Okay.
You mean if you revise the charter, it doesn't start over?
No.
Is that what you mean?
Well, back in 2016 or whatever, didn't it start over again because of the new charter?
Oh, council terms.
Oh, council term.
Oh.
Yeah, council terms, yeah. The parish, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
the parish president's the only one that had term limits, not the council, when I was in office.
Okay, that being said, though, now that there is term limits, you're saying it wouldn't start over? Okay.
No. I think I'm the only living person that this is impacts, so I'm not running again, so you don't need to worry about that. You won't see my name on that ballot, so I don't have any issue with if you want to make a motion or if you want to have legal draft something and come back with it.
Well, so you're the only person that it affects now. I mean,
Yeah.
You think about, say,
only thing I
a
wanna be
young,
able to do-
spry 18-year-old runs for parish president.
The only thing I want to be able to do is wear my shirts that have
logo?
parish president on.
That's
You know?
That's right, that's right.
So I wish somebody would make a motion for that so I can keep wearing them.
That's right.
Mr. Shane.
Mr. Shane.
You will always be a parish president, okay?
Thank you.
Irrespective of what they allow you to wear. I think it's good that we have something drafted, but I think let's all continue to think about how the public might view this proposition on a ballot, and would it become a negative in the sense that some wanting to limit it to 2 terms and maybe vote against it? I realize the idea was to clarify. Not to change.
Yep.
But I also know that if we clarify, I don't want it to create the possibility of a negative that could flow into other provisions. I'm just suggesting we continue to think about it, because I think a lot of these balls, at the end of the day, we're going to have to make our best bet as to a package that the council might like, and so that the council can determine, is the electorate ready for the package that we put out there? Does it really have a chance? And so I'd like to continue to think about this.
Whatever the council, whatever the committee so desires, we'll ask us. I think the gentleman would like to see some language on it, so we'll do that next month. Is that okay?
Yeah, just a discussion.
Next meeting, rather.
I'm just making an observation.
Yeah,
If it ultimately is not a good idea to put on for reasons not thought of, then hey.
Well, I'd like at least doing some drafting, because I'd like to get some motions or not. Do you know what I mean, on some items?
Yes, sir.
As we go through, say, nope, we don't like that, let's move on, or yes, we all like that.
And I just wanted to point out that section 201A regarding council terms uses that same 3 consecutive terms language.
Yeah.
So if we change it in one place, we should probably change it in both.
Good point. Yeah. Who do I have?
Gina Hayes.
Gina, I'm sorry.
Yes, what I would like to do, and I think what we all should think about, is as we're going through this, I know we're requesting to get more information, hear from other speakers, make some little changes. I think I guess what I just want to make clear is that before anything goes to the council for their consideration, we get presented with a revised version for us all to look at and vote on one time. You know, so we all know, because like, for instance, some of these changes, some of us may agree with and some of us may not. I don't want it to be assumed that just because everyone didn't speak up didn't mean everyone was in agreement with some changes that have taken place.
Agree.
I think it needs to be very clear for all of us and for the public before anything gets sent to the council. We have clear change with, you know, lines drawn through what was and new words put in so that everyone can see. It's all very transparent for everyone, what we're suggesting to the council and what we're recommending.
That's exactly what I was requesting, so that at some point we'll get the documents back, and then we will actually make a decision on them.
Thank you.
Do our dissenting opinions go as well? So if we have a dissenting opinion, kind of like you have a final appellate opinion, you know, so-and-so councilman dissenting, you know?
Yeah. Larry.
Oh, good, thank you. Clarification, so I don't know, Kevin or Emily, I think 2 people already said package to the council. We would give these as individuals to the council, correct? And then the council can pick and choose. I just want to make, when I heard the word package, it got me a little nervous. As a package.
I mean,
So-
I envision it may be one sheet or maybe 2 sheets, but it will have the items. It'll say, Section 217, the recommendation from the committee was power of levying taxes, change this.
Right.
And that's the recommendation.
Right.
And then, but we would have voted on that. So so as you're talking, I would get the opportunity to say, no, I don't agree with it, even though it passed, okay? Okay, are we on the same page?
No, my vision at the very beginning was everything was going to be separate, and then it's a yes or a no if the council wanted to look at it.
It will be.
But when I heard the word package, I just wanted to make sure what people were thinking on package. So,
Okay.
I agree with that. I agree that it's separate, and then up or down on whatever, and then we consider it, things like that. I just wanted to verify that. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Impostata.
Mr. Impostata.
I just wanted to make sure it's clear, so whenever it does get to the council, it can be voted on individually.
Correct.
That's what I think, Larry,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, it'll be separate.
Right.
As I just said, powers, I'm making this up, but this section, this is what we recommend. And you all can say, nope, we don't agree with that recommendation of Section 217. But I want to make sure you're with me. It will be, you can use words package or non-package. It'll all be on a list.
You're going to send them all at one time.
Maybe that's what I'm trying to say. We'll send them all at one time. Yeah.
Gina.
We're all on the same page. Gina?
Yes, and I also think it needs to be made very clear that regardless of what we send to the council, we are just an advisory committee. There is nothing that we can submit to them that they are forced to adopt.
Right.
They can accept all of it, they can accept none of it, they can make some changes and accept half, a quarter, or only one thing. It will totally be in the purview of the council. We are just an advisory committee.
Thank you so much. No more discussion up here. I have a public, Ms. Stevens.
When you were talking about term limits, I remembered the last home rule charter experience, and there was a lot of contention. And maybe we passed by it and I didn't notice, but I would like you all to consider 2 terms as the maximum for council people. And the reason is, in the last go-round, I think public sentiment was that way. And then they voted 3 terms, and then they pushed it out so that it was, the 3 terms would start at like some ridiculous time way out in the future. So council people who were in office could stay in office till 2033, which it defeated the whole purpose of term limits. And I think when you do your BGR survey, or whether you do a robocall or however you get input from the public, I think you're going to find that they like term limits. Not that they don't like you, they like term limits. I've never heard about the parish president, but we've only had a couple. But they definitely want term limits on council, so I would encourage that you include that in your discussions going forward. Thank you.
Ms. Stevens, I think it was kind of like the number 14 when we were working on it in 2000. You had, the parish president had 3 terms, so the assumption was give the council 3 terms. I think that's how they got there. But anyway, we appreciate your comments and we'll take it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other discussion on that? Yes, ma'am.
Regarding the term limits, I agree, and I remember well the rumblings in the community. They didn't want 3 terms. They wanted 2 terms, and they wanted it for the parish president as well.
Good.
So
thank you. Appreciate
and that's, you know, in the community. As in the same thing's happening, by the way, on the number of council districts. They don't like 14 either, but that's just what I hear.
Colin.
I have a question really for both of you guys. Do you, regardless of whether it's 2 or 3, do you think it makes sense for them to be the same, especially if we're talking about equalizing power? I'm just curious.
I like there would be a continuity.
Yeah.
And historical knowledge carried forward if the parish president was enabled to have a longer term. Or maybe you could even split it where half of the council got 3 and half of them got 2, so that you had some turnover, and I just don't know.
If they end up having, again, and this is kind of really shows our hand, I don't think anyone's picked a path here yet.
No.
Let's say you ended up having an at-large position. Would you envision that at-large person having a longer period for that continuity? Does that resonate well?
Just so I don't have to scream from the seats.
For everybody, really, it's, you know.
I don't know, but I like the concept of at-large, but I don't think this committee or even I've done enough homework to understand the powers of an at-large, what they could do that other council people couldn't, and I only, in a very rudimentary sense, understand what happens in Jefferson Parish. I think they get paid more, they have more power, they get to choose what goes on to the agenda, where other council people don't. So I don't know that this committee has even investigated that enough to make that decision. In concept, I like it because they, instead of the fiefdoms, they would cover everybody and answer to everybody. So I love that. Maybe we should have 5 at-large and 2 council people, or 5 at-large and 1 vice chair and a chair.
So kind of some of the dialogue when we talked, when the discussion was about reducing in the size and adding an at-large or keeping the same, when those discussions were back and forth, it was about access to your representative, right? 14 people, it seems like conceptually that would be better access across the parish to your representative for things. But at the same time, also counterbalancing that was that's still 14 people that are part-time if they haven't reached a retirement age, that have full-time jobs. So what seems like full-time access might not be, but if you balance that with having 1 or 2 at-large that are full-time, then if these aren't available, you always have a full-time person available to the constituents, was kind of the dialogue, kind of going back and forth, not really knowing where to land. But that seemed to be the, and maybe it also made sense if they were going to consider that maybe that person would serve longer for continuity purposes, and then the other ones would be more. I don't know which one's the best yet.
Okay. Thank you. Good question. And I think it was good. I get you. I understand what you're saying. Jerry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, if you're a councilman, either in the past or present, okay, I think that we would all say that we work a lot of hours, okay? Whether we're at work or retired, you're getting emails, you're getting phone calls, you're getting text messages, and when you get home at night, you're on the phone, you're going through emails and so forth. This is not a pity comment, but the comment of we're not full-time. Well, we may not be full-time pay-wise, and I prefer the 14 because I'm a believer. I don't agree with Ms. Lowe. I believe that our constituents like better access to council members. And you all have even discussed this, because how does everyone in the parish get in touch with the parish president? They go to their council members very frequently, okay? So, and I think the 3-term limit, I was here when we passed that, it was to match up to the parish president.
I think that was.
And a good point about we need turnover. We never had any 1-term limited this last election, and we have 9 new council members out of 14. And Arthur had 1 year of experience and got elected to a full term, 10 out of 14. So we've always had turnover on the council. It's usually been about 5 every term, okay? So it's not a guaranteed, you know, that you're going to get reelected every single time. You got to run. And if someone runs against you, you better work hard. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any other comments on the committee?
I've got a comment.
Okay, I got,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Joe, then Joe.
Joe?
Mr. Sims. Of all the models that you've got that we've talked about, we keep migrating back to council size. It just seems like we can't get away from that subject. You know? But of all the models of full-time, part-time, at-large, not at-large, number this, number that, if you have at-large, it's conceivable, of the various models out there around the country, it's conceivable that the at-large could start, I think this is Mr. Sims was getting at-large starts a new clock on how many times you can be reelected, all right? And that is one of the models, all right? So you say, let's say you have a Councilman A, runs for at-large, he's already completed 2 terms, he or she, and gets elected at-large, the clock could start over again. That's, like I said, there's a plethora of models out there, and unfortunately, we keep going back to this same subject.
Yeah, it's interesting because, again, be very cautious where I'm not talking about any in particular, but you constantly see the council district at-large seat, the council district now runs for that large seat, the large seat now runs for the district because he lived in. I see it every day, it happens. And it just like it goes on and on and on. So Colin, it may go back to what you said, and that is when you do your 3 terms, it's over. You know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, you guys have got to know it's going on all the time. And yeah.
They start over by going somewhere else.
They got another 3 terms up here, and they got 3 terms here. I don't know what that. Mr. Impastato, you're next.
No, but I was going to say, you can fix that shell game moving in the charter.
Agreed.
I think that's easy. I always do find it funny when people talk about council term limits. I mean, we have a hard time finding somebody to run for the seat. I think 3 term limits is very reasonable for a council member. I think you should get a prize if you are willing to sit up here for 12 years. Now, when you talk about term limits and look at other parish-wide jobs, I know it's not under the purview of our charter, but like the sheriff or the assessor, I mean, they are jobs that we should probably be looking at term limits for. But I think a 3-term limit for a council member is a very reasonable number. And I do think if by some chance we do look at the at-large option, it should be limited to where you cannot do that shell game back and forth.
Okay. Well, we're going to look at that item 302, the election, and Miss Emily's going to look at that. Oh, Scott, I'm sorry.
No problem. I think we're having very good substantive discussions.
Yeah.
And first off, Joe, the assessor and the sheriff are state officials. Legislature governs there. term limits, but no, but this, we don't control it. The state legislature controls that. But I sense we keep coming back to the council makeup, the number, and I'm not faulting anybody for that, but I think we need another meeting on this, because I sense it's in a lot of people's blood right now. Having said that, and I agree with Gina, we're an advisory committee. I respectfully advise our committee that if we don't come up with something to excite voters on, the parish council sure as hell better, because people are going to need to feel good about voting this package in. Okay? I think we should think about that. If we don't think about that, well, we're an advisory committee. Parish council must think about that. I respectfully move that we have another meeting scheduled at some point in time. I'm not saying the next meeting, but at some point in time to re-talk about the size of the parish council. Every meeting we tend to have part of our discussions talking about it, which is fine. If you all tell me it's not in people's blood, then that's fine. I went back and looked at the newspaper articles like the public looks at. The August newspaper article of August 4th of 2024, the headline in the form is Parish Council decides to look at the size of the council. So people read that. And we're talking about it at every meeting, even just a little, sometimes a little more than a little. Let's think about, I'll withdraw my motion. Let's respectfully think about letting at least us talk about it some more at another meeting and stay on the subject that we're going on and stay off of the council sides.
Yeah, I think, if I may, I feel like that's exactly what we're doing. I'm trying to get us moving through this charter on these other items, but remember, at any point, as Joe just brought up, I'd like to discuss more of this particular item at the next meeting. If we get a groundswell of people who come in, I haven't seen it yet, that want 5, 7, 9, 2, or 30, we're all open to that. At least I think all the members are. So hopefully, I don't want you to be discouraged. We didn't say that 14 it's over with. Okay? And we'll continue this dialogue as we move forward. Okay. Colin?
Do we think that this council, not this council, this committee is going to have a part of its review or otherwise, would this be another body organized for tax reform, tax structure? Because I'm always going to come back to, while I do think dedicated funds for subject matter things do play a role and are important to have, I don't know what the volume and scope, and I'm not limiting it to the mosquito abatement guys. There's a lot of, I mentioned last time at the last meeting, we have so many duplicative boards in this parish for everything known to man, and they all have a nominal cost associated with them. I don't care. If you add it up, it's a cost. And I don't know how you bifurcate that from, quote, structure of government, because that kind of is what we're talking about. You have a home rule charter committee of how we operate government, the right structure for it. But this big elephant in the room is that, and I don't know if I'm quoting the right figures, but you got 780 million tax dollars spoken for and $15 million in a general fund. You know, what are we gonna do about that to engage the public and have a very productive dialogue about the things that should remain dedicated, the things that should more properly be a line item in a budget, and what form of government is going to run those things too? Is that something separate? If it's something separate, then I'm going to pocket that for another committee for another day, and we'll stay focused on this.
I completely agree with you. From my past experience, the legislature gave local governments the authority to create. So what happened is they created, and those entities did taxes.
Yes.
So I'm with you. I've tried to figure out, well, what body and how do you get there to review all that was created? You got a question? Or
Yeah, so to build, District Attorney Sims, to build on what you're saying, I think we need to make sure that we exhaust and see if there's a solution within the Home Rule Charter, perhaps to create something there, because what you're saying absolutely needs to be done. And I feel like what Chairman Davis has said was, we had the power, we created the power, but then we it's almost like children. We let them into the wild and they create their own taxing bodies. But at the same time, the council, who we're here to kind of represent, takes 110% of the blame and it has 3% of the control.
I can tell you, Collins, a good example of that was the Sewer and Water Commission. When I was on the police jury, we had a Sewer and Water Commission. Some of you all remember that. It was separate. It was called Environmental Services or something. It was separate from parish government. I think parish government created it, but under state law, they said, well, you can do that. And they used to be housed here, was not a parish entity. So, and this is where we might want to look. I went back to the legislature and asked them to abolish that and give all of the assets to parish government. And it took legislation to do that. There was 2 cases involved. That was the first one, so we got into the sewer and water, because I don't think constituents, that's like a road. They need help to do sewer and water. The second one was, on the east side, there was another district created by this body, and we took it in. But we had to go back to the legislature to get that approval to make that happen. So I'm not sure. It'd be interesting to see if we can do it in the charter.
Emily, then Joe.
Emily, I'm sorry.
And I know that we're just moving around the charter
Yeah.
as topics come up, but I just want to point out Section 808, control over local public agencies and special districts. That's what gives the council the authority to abolish, consolidate all these different districts that they create. There are some things that are solely created by revised statute and that the parish governing authority does not have any control over, like the hospital districts. We cannot consolidate, change those. But fire districts, rec districts, other districts that are created by the parish council can be consolidated, abolished, changed at any point in time, subject to restrictions related to bonded debt and some other things. And also, those entities are required to come to the council for prior approval of any special taxes, bond, or tax levy. So just want to make sure that y'all are aware where that is in the charter.
Who would we ask for that information?
Which of those entities can be consolidated or merged and which ones cannot be touched? Is that the question?
Yes.
Me?
Okay. I got the person.
Did you still want to?
Could you do that? I was giving you examples. The sewer and water was really one that was here, but we had to go back. So I'm not sure how that fit in. So, but I think there's enough. Yeah. We want to know.
Yeah, and we did a lot of this research too in our lawsuit between the DA's office and the parish, and who represented which board and commission at which point in time, and which ones are state agencies and which ones are home rule charter entities. So we have that started, but I will need to update that research.
Great.
And I'm just going to say, I want to be clear, because you're running a balance of respecting the will of the voter.
Right.
Which is, we voted for these dedicated things. We expect our money to be spent on these things.
Right.
And I agree wholeheartedly with that. The problem I have is at times, when presented things individually in a vacuum, these things sound proportionately great idea. Mm-hmm. That's what we should do. But what you didn't receive information on, and what you weren't told while this was being proposed to you, is also what is lacking. And you were never given the opportunity to say, okay, well, if all things being equal, no, and look, I'm not picking on the mosquito abatement district, kind of. If I'm looking at the mosquito abatement district, and I'm looking at the entire judiciary not being funded, I'm balancing these things. Or if I'm looking at, why does this thing have its own board, and why is it not a line item on a budget, but your entitled judicial system is a line item on a budget? Why is one a certain way and why is it the other? Maybe it's the perfect setup. I don't think that it is, but maybe it is.
Yeah, I think it was. You got to remember our history. We were a police jury, so we created.
No, it's not a knock. It's saying like, here we are 20 years later.
Right.
Like, does this still all
Well, I think
make sense?
I think it makes
in this?
sense. And look, I think mosquito control does a great job. They really do. Okay? But you have to ask yourself, mosquito control has an attorney. They have this, they have that, they have this, and help me out here. And this other board and commission has an attorney, and they have all these things. Does it not make some sense that if they're real government functions, that they just wouldn't be put into government? And then you'd have, you know, I guess it's too easy to say one attorney because you'd have these boards. But I think you get the sense of what I'm saying. You're basically, hopefully the goal is to reduce your costs. What did I do?
General Ernst has his.
General Ernst, I talk too much.
List that's going to be produced. It would be good if that list included what the overhead cost of all of that is in the macro.
That might be hard for her to do, yeah. We'd ask staff if they could help us, yeah.
I didn't mean that you would, I assumed there was a legal part and there was an administrative part.
Great, good discussion. We've got a little bit of time left. I do have the gentleman online. I think he's ready, so.
What do I have to hit?
The lectern laptop.
It's on, it's on, it's on, it's on, it's on.
Good afternoon.
Glenn, you
We're
there?
going to try it again.
Here he comes, there he is.
There he is. Good afternoon.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the time and attention. I was just going to make a couple of call outs regarding, you know, I know there's call outs regarding council size. And what I heard was, you know, part of that was to at least effectively serve or listen to the public and then act on that feedback from the public. What I'd encourage this committee to also consider, you know, to really deliver on that objective to listen to the public and get that feedback. You know, I think there's other blockers besides council size that suppress or restrict you know, the public getting their voice heard or considered. So I'd urge the committee members to, you know, when trying to identify actionable, you know, things to work towards, to you know, to make sure we're listening to the public. You know, we're setting up structure and you know that a structure that will sorry, language is different for me. Setting up a structure to, you know, kind of regain that public trust and maintain it. I think it's important to, you know, not just focus on council size, but also focus on, you know, what other factors can block, you know, being able to listen or serve or seek feedback from the public.
Yes.
I'll pause there for questions.
Great. We appreciate it. Thanks again for coming on, and we appreciate it. Jack, is it Jack or? Yes, sir. I got John, and so I didn't know.
Just real quick, when I worked in
Hold on.
Undo, put it back to.
I'm not touching anything.
It's me, it's Studio Fee.
It's him.
I'm telling him. Yeah, I'm telling him. Don't worry.
Look, I was a good chair. I knew how to do what Mary says.
When I used to do community consulting, one of the big problems we have, which is the problem you have, who's
Agreed.
here, and came up with an easy solution. It's still around, online surveys. If you want to know what the public thinks, I have done them in my own neighborhood. They cost a little bit out of pocket, about $100. If it gets over a certain number, it goes up. You have to be careful in designing it because you can, you know, you can ask a question in a way you get the answer you want instead of open-ended type questions. The other thing you have to watch for on these surveys is you don't want ballot stuffing. So you've got to figure out a way, and I think the newer, years ago I used SurveyMonkey, which is kind of silly, but it was a great little tool.
Yeah.
But you can set this up, you can ask questions, and you get back all the data on the very questions you're asking about. You might not be able to get results from the whole parish, but it's another way to reach the busy parents who are going to soccer and cheer and this and that, and the people who are working overtime. When I was working, I worked 60, 70 hours a week or more, and, you know, didn't have time for anything. And that's the problem most of my neighbors face. So maybe in thinking about how to collect data of what's the public think, look at doing a survey, look at putting it out there, and just a guess, probably wouldn't to a really good survey, probably wouldn't cost more than $1,000 if you got the right online tool to do it with, and the right people designing it for you. Just a thought. Thanks again.
Great, thank you. At least I know this committee is very appreciative of you coming up and holding your meetings where you discussed it, because I mean, I'm just a reflection of what I'm hearing is there's no groundswell, again, to make them smaller, larger, or anything. I mean, I'm just not hearing that. I mean, I hear one yes, but I'm not hearing that. So we're not sure what that answer is, I think. And I think that's an honest reflection of what's going on. Do we have staff want to mention something?
Just really quick, anybody who's watching this at home, I just want to remind you that we have an email address, hrc@stpgov.org. If you have any comments that you would like the committee to have and are unable to come to a meeting, as well as we have a form on our website. If you go to our main page and go to Home Rule Charter Committee, you can do that. Also at our council meetings, Christine always puts out cards to get feedback. If anybody's at a council meeting and they have a comment, they can hand it in then as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're trying to do everything. I like the idea of survey. I've done them. They're not always, I just did one. It was 60 people and 11 responded. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, I think people are just busy, but anyway. Okay, any other comments here? We'll take, let's see, qualifications, we've, I think, finished that. President's temporary absence, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, folks. Y'all read it. Compensation.
Mary, your button again.
Y'all skipped a couple sections.
I did?
Yes. Qualificates in the forfeiture of office, vacancy in office of the president. Do y'all not have that in your packet?
Oh, I thought I just did. Qualifications, forfeiture of office, vacancy in office.
Yeah. His temporary absence.
Yeah, temporary absence. I mean, I think that was pretty well written. I don't think the compensation is the average of some of the other elected officials. The powers and duties. Now you get to the administration, section 4-01. I'm sorry? Sure. Powers and duties of the president. 3.09. Ms. Tanner?
Do you want to turn your mic on? Sure.
Prepare and submit the annual operating budget and the 5-year capital improvement budget to the council. I think the council should join in the preparation of the budget. I don't know where this is the place to put it or whatever. And I would like to see it presented in a more, I know the state statute says one thing, I don't know where we can ask for it earlier, but the 90 days is not enough time to look at a 300-page budget document.
So your discussion is the 90 days is not enough time?
No, not for a 300-page. And I would like to see, I don't know where this is the place to do it, I would like to see some input from the council members on the budget. You know, getting a document on October 1st, never seen it before, we see it when the public sees it, and it's usually 300 pages, and we have to approve it by December 31st. It's not enough time. I don't feel like it is.
Okay. All right. You got a question or a comment?
I have a, would a possible solution, Cheryl, be to make this part of make the development of the budget either part of the finance committee or maybe just have a select group of volunteers who would work on the budget year-round with the administration?
I don't know. This may not be the place to do it. The other thing is projects, signed contracts, projects, equipment, professional services. You know, those are things I'd like to look at because the council really does not know what is being signed. And
So
there may be a study, but we never really get a study back.
So today, so the public understands, you're given the budget
On October 1st.
on October 1st.
When the public is.
And then you will vote on that prior to the end of the year to go for the next year.
It has to be approved by December 31st.
So that's October, it gives you November and December. Okay, and it's, other council members, is it,
This may not be the place to
wanted-
put it. I just,
well, it is, I mean, this is where it says he has to
Right.
present it in 90 days, so you want to present it in 120 days, or?
Oh, that's just how it is. We get it October 1st. And then we
Gina?
have. Yeah, I'm sorry, Larry?
Larry?
Section 5? Okay, so we can address it in Section 5? Okay.
Well, the question, let me ask Emily this really quick. What Cheryl is thinking, I understand what you're saying, which is an issue for the council, I know. Couldn't that be done by ordinance anyway? Like to get it quicker?
No, it's in section,
I had.
section 502. Section 502 of the charter requires that it be submitted 90 days prior to the beginning of
Okay.
each fiscal year, which is January 1.
Okay.
So we really need to look at this when we get to section 5, if
Okay.
we want to make that 90-day period extended.
Yeah, in section 3, it just says prepare and submit annual operating budget and 5-year capital improvement budget to the council. It actually doesn't say when. That's in 3.
Okay.
It doesn't say when. Gina, help me out here. Is there a kind of a timetable that you all use?
Gina, turn your mic on.
Yes, and I think to make this change that Cheryl would want to see would be changed in section 5,
I
not
agree.
section 3.
I agree, but I'm just asking, she did mention this part. Prepare and submit the annual operating budget and 5-year capital improvement. That's just basically saying that's one of his duties.
Correct.
Okay,
We can address it in 5.
all right. Joe?
I was going to say under number 5, where it's signed contracts for projects, equipment, professional services, et cetera. To me, that needs some kind of council approval, whether it's at a committee approval or somewhere that brings it out to the public. And I know it may cause some timing issues, but I think it's very important. And that goes to what Cheryl was saying about we're not seeing things, we don't know what's going on, whether it's approved or issued by resolution of the council or some type of action. I don't know what it is, but I'd like to look into it.
Yes. Number 5 of 3.09, signed contracts for projects, equipment, professional services. And basically, once it's been approved in the operating capital improvement, they just move forward. So what you're suggesting is, okay, we can move forward, but we want to see all that, correct? Correct. Okay. Emily, I know your list is getting longer.
Well,
Could you help us with some,
I think I'd request some more clarification from the members of the committee of what exactly you're looking for in terms of language. So, I mean, we have the budget process where these projects are identified, and that's what gives the president authority to sign the contract. So are you just requesting that this be amended to require that all signed contracts be received by the council after signature? Or how does the council want to be inserted into this process is my question.
do you want to be notified prior to? just notified, or do you want to review, or do you want to know after the fact?
I mean, it would definitely be prior, but I think it has to, in some capacity, come up at a committee meeting and brought out to the public. Whether the council votes on it as a committee or at a council meeting through resolution, to me, that would be better government.
But what are they voting on, would be my question.
The contract itself, whether it's a professional service, I don't know.
Would you
but
submit?
Maybe it really is just professional service contracts regarding studies. Maybe it's not equipment.
Most governments, and I know we wrote it this way because I was there, most governments, any acquisition, be it professional services or any other thing else, has to be presented to the council. And I'm buying 10 dump trucks. So the public knows what's going on. We're buying, that it was in the budget, we're buying 10 dump trucks, and it's presented to the council. Does that make some clarification?
Let me ask this, can this be addressed in the budget part, that if you put professional services in the budget, it has to specify exactly what professional services and how much? Because if it says professional services, $90,000, we don't know what that is or what is being done. So is it best, I don't want to hold up government on signing contracts, but I'd like to.
I've heard that, and I got to say, it's just like, I believe in an excuse. I mean, I served here 24 years. If I'm going to do a professional contract, I know ahead of time. You know, the staff comes in and says, we need to do a study on an engineering report on this. We know that ahead of time. So I don't think coming to you slows the process. Colin?
Yeah, I kind of don't understand why you wouldn't lay some of these out in the budget, and once you have the budget authority, to allow parish government to act and execute. If you create too much of a oversight, you're going to bog down what's already a slow-moving system of government anyway, if you're a person with a business waiting for a decision. It seems like maybe you could meet maybe a hybrid of acquisitions beyond X, or for certain things require, council. Maybe they don't budget it until there's a separate presentation, and maybe you amend the budget for the specific things sought to be accomplished. But I wouldn't have a blanket deal that for professional services that the council is going to be agreeing to all of it. You could maybe you identify the things you really have a concern about, identify those things so we don't bog the whole thing down. Would just be an observation. I don't run parish government, but I imagine there's a lot that comes up that you want to be able to run government without having to come here, and you guys meet ever so often where you're just not getting things executed.
No, I think that's a good point. Looking at dollar amounts would make sense. Have a cap. You don't want to have a meeting about a $10,000 expenditure.
Right.
But I think the main idea is just to bring some of these issues to the public, let them know what we're going on. Like if it is lined item as a professional service for a drainage or an engineering, just so we can get more details at a committee meeting and understand it better. But I think we should do some more investigation and look more into it, and then bring it up at the next meeting.
Good. Ms. Hayes?
Yes, right now, all of our professional services are budgeted. They are budgeted specifically. This is a study for a housing study, or this is a drainage study. I think what is happening and what has happened is that in our budgeting process, the way we were using Munis is a lot of times those things were combined, and then the description was just listed professional services, $500,000. And it wasn't clear for the council to see that 50 of it was for this particular study and 150 of it was for this particular study. That's a change we can make in Munis. And so that will be more readily available for y'all at any time now. And all you have to do is it's going to be in the next budget, so you'll get to see it in 2026. All of those will be spelled out for you bit by bit. But in the meantime, for 2025, we do have that information now. And if you want it, you just request it from me and I'll get it to you. I can't reprint the entire 2025 budget right now, but we do have that information. So if you just ask me for it at any time, I'll be happy to supply it. But for 2026, you'll be able to see it. Welcome.
Arthur?
And I'll let the committee decide or legal advise us. I do think, though, that the one thing the council should be given is the budget electronically and the budget a way to manipulate it. I think sending a 1-inch thick printed book to us, the simultaneously, so y'all have to understand, those in the audience, we get that budget for the first time the same day y'all get it. So, and we do not have a way to import it into Excel and crunch numbers and change things. We are flipping through pages, writing on the books, highlighting and doing things the old-fashioned way. So I'm not sure if that's in section 5 or where we are right now, but I do think we need to have it in a very easy form.
Okay. I don't think any of that's criticism. It's just trying to help the process so everybody has knowledge. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Any other discussion? Pat?
Press your button, sir.
Do people have access to this electronic copy? Should they not be able to see it, to be transparent? Or is that something after the fact that's passed, maybe putting it out there?
Well, huh? Yeah, I think any document that you have is public, so I would think that.
I mean, they can see all the, like you said, public services, but then we're going to see it broken out later, but the public would also be able to see that? Basically every check? Okay.
Once it's put on, yeah, it has to be put on, but yeah, once it's done, I think everybody should be able to see that, yeah. And you want to comment? No? Okay, good. Anything else on that? We're going to move along. I missed you. You're right. You did have a card.
Sorry, this was about in the council's section, and I didn't want to interrupt Cheryl when you'd moved on. If you would seriously consider, and only because of recent events with this new council, put some sort of mechanism into the charter regarding sanctions for members who behave badly. We had a situation, and I forgot what they call it in Congress, when a congressperson behaves badly. It's not sanctions, it's something else, but censure. We really, unfortunately, need to consider that at this point in time, and just so you know, we're talking about that at mosquito abatement too, for people that may not follow the rules or whatever the mandate is for the organization. And since the council and the public has already been exposed to bad behavior by a member of the council, I think there really should be a mechanism, or at least some outline saying, if you cross this line, if you break the law, you should be held accountable, whether it's missing meetings, whether it's missing a vote, whether it's being removed from a committee. There should be some sort of remedy for bad behavior, because you as council people represent the public, and if you're not going to follow the law, then why would we be expected to follow the law? So please consider that.
Yeah. Any of the members, my thoughts were, in the past, the way it was handled was you didn't get a second on a motion.
It's bigger than that now.
I realize that. I'll just let you know what was done in the past, because there are, let's say you go into executive session, you come out of that session and 13 say yes and 1 says no, and then 1 decides to talk about that at some homeowners meeting. That is not appropriate. And I know it has happened. So I don't know how legally that's handled. I think it gets messy. I don't know. But
maybe it is stopping them from participating in a future vote, or I'm just suggesting.
There should be decorum amongst the members themselves, and hopefully they can police themselves, is my thought. But if anybody else wants to comment. Thank you. You do? You want to say something?
All I have to say is, at the time of what I believe, there was no mechanism in place. And I think Ms. Lewis-Stevens has a good point, because if we do want to, we should create it at this time.
Yeah. Can you, could our staff, not maybe, because Emily, we've given you a lot, maybe our staff could ask, she does make a good point, I think in Congress, because we've just seen it recently on the House floor where they censored somebody. What is the rules and how did they get there? I think it'd be easy to grab that and get that, just so we could have it for them to look at in a future meeting. Thank you. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. We did 309, 310. Did I skip anything? 310. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. You can't have another job while you're the parish president. Administration General Provisions 4. This talks about all the departments, offices, and agencies shall be directed. Chief Administrative Officer and their duties. I thought we had a, yeah, it is. It's a master's degree in public administration or related field. Who checks that? Who checks that? Do y'all check that? I mean, if you're Chief Administrative Officer.
Well, I can tell you, I'm the Chief Administrative Officer, so I can tell you I meet the qualifications.
Okay.
But yes, before President Cooper appointed me, he did, well, he already knew because I had been the Chief Administrative Officer for him for 8 years with the City of Covington. But so he had my resume, but I will tell you the past council did ask for my resume, and they did check to make sure I met all the qualifications.
Okay, that wouldn't have directed you because
No, that's okay.
I mean, I knew too. I had to. My chief of staff or CAO had to have that, and I made sure too. But I'm just saying, what could I have appointed somebody and just not call them the CAO?
I think that they would not be able to fulfill the CAO position if they didn't meet all the qualifications of the CAO. Could you hire someone else and name them something else and they would have different duties? Yes, you could do that too. But that would not be one of the appointed positions like the director.
Okay. Legal Department. The district attorney shall serve as legal advisor to the council. Parish president and all departments, offices, and agencies represent parish government in legal proceedings. No special legal counsel shall be retained by parish government except by written contract for a specific purpose approved by the favorable vote of a majority of the authorized membership of the council. Such authorizations shall specify the compensation, if any, to be paid for the services. Okay. Collins, you want to keep doing this? I might as well just get right to it, huh?
I think it's working out well. It's a bit like we've had this discussion back and forth at different points with council, parish president. You know, it's kind of one of those things. I think at this exact moment in time, I feel like everyone's happy with the personnel that represent them. Does that change one day? I don't know the answer to that. One of the things that we had talked about changing and in what mechanism and way to do that, and regardless of whether it's in a charter or not, it's something that I'm going to do. Any vacancy that arises, I'm going to create a hiring committee and ask the council to appoint a member and parish president and let everyone participate in the hiring process of who will represent them. I think it would be helpful to add, I think it should stay as the DA as for now. What I think would be helpful is I wouldn't mind including a veto provision where I can't hire or fill a vacancy that is that either the parish president or the council, we don't want that person. I wouldn't mind giving them a veto, something like that, where it's where they have say-so, and I'm not going to shove someone down their throat that they just can't work with. Does that make sense to everyone? I think.
Yeah.
I think then we're having buy-in, a say-so, and then I still manage the legal department unless and until someone decides that we really want to sit down and have a subcommittee on a whole different entity that you want to create. Right now, I think we can absorb it for a certain budgetary amount in cost, which I think is pretty good compared to other parishes' budgets and other expenses made. But I think they do a very good job now. Maybe it's the luck of the hire, but I'm definitely for changing. If someone said, hey, we really want that to be part of the charter, some type of veto, I got no issue with that. I think that it's something that I intend to do anyway. So I leave it up for discussion as we move forward.
Okay. You want to go first?
Ms. Hayes and then me.
Ms. Hayes wants to go?
So I would just like to submit a suggestion for us to consider. Of course, I will tell you, we love working with the Civil Division of the District Attorney's Office. We have absolutely no problems with them. We love them. We actually consider them part of our staff. However, there may come a time when the district attorney doesn't want to do work for parish government, or the parish president, or the council. I know that there are other parishes that have this exact same language in their charter, and then there's a little tagline at the end that says, unless the parish president, council, and district attorney decide to do otherwise. And it just gives everyone an escape route if at some point, you know, let's say that there's a terrible parish president and a terrible council, and they're doing all kind of terrible things, and District Attorney Sims said, I don't want any part of this. You know, he has a way to get out, and they have a way to let him out without having to go to another vote of the people. It would just gives you more leeway if everyone's in agreement and on board.
I would agree with that too. I think that if both parties or all parties that make the decision are all in unanimous agreement to make a change, and I think you then have to also add that particular change also couldn't bind any elected parties that come next. So as an example, if I remain, and the council's always shifting, so we'd have to figure that out. But as an example, if I remained and the parish president remained, and he came in and said, I don't care what the agreement was, I want the DA as my attorney, and even if I opposed it, I think it would have to go back and revert back until we were both meeting of the same mind again.
Right.
And vice versa. If I'm gone and a new DA comes in and he has a different opinion, then I think they would have to get back on the same page again.
Yeah.
I agree.
How, let's just be frank, how do you feel in reference to, everything's fine right now, but there's a conflict. Sure. There's conflict. The council decides we're going this way and the administration wants to go that way, and they get in an argument, and so under this charter, they would have the authority to go hire somebody because they don't agree.
So you'd have, so let's go, like, so what happened? So we've at one time in 10 years, we have this blow up. And I think it could have been avoided. I don't see it. And let's just be frank and be honest that the tension between the council and parish government was at a level that was not healthy.
Never seen before.
Correct. It was not healthy, right? And there's been a reset and things seem to be working much better. I feel like the legal department was caught in the crossfire of those tensions at the time. I think that the way we have done some things now and changed things, I think that is avoided. Our job is to not tell anyone what to do, it's to advise what you can do. If people choose not to abide by the legal advice, then it's the same thing. We had a conversation the other day. It's like someone wanted something done and didn't like the opinion given and thought it wasn't appropriate and recited all this law. It's like the legal advice is the legal advice. If you counsel choose not to follow it, just like if you had a private attorney, I can't get in your way. But this DA's office is not going to do things that's contrary to the law.
Right.
So and I think that actually, is the part that if me as a citizen and as a taxpayer I like that the DA's office is going to give independent legal advice. It's not going to research things to a strategic conclusion by some. It's going to say, these are your options, this is the law. No, we're not going to create a fiction just because you want to do something else that the law doesn't allow.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
And I think that independence is helpful and beneficial if you're the public and a taxpayer.
Yeah.
I do want to avoid conflicts, and I think that they can be avoided, but I also don't think that where things were are likely to rear their head again. And let's think about this. This is how it's been set up now. When did y'all do the home rule charter?
Yeah, 2000.
So one time in since
25.
2000, and we've really had an issue.
Yeah.
I don't think that's
Yeah,
that's
I mean, I
something
was
to
shocked. I agree with you. We never had a problem in my 24 years here. But I really wanted to hear from you.
Yeah.
You know, what is that conflict so the public can hear that discussion?
Yeah.
You know, how that is resolved.
But I think now we have better guardrails in place that's not going to happen again.
Yeah. Arthur, you had a comment?
I think we need a brief history lesson. I'm not sure if who could give that. I know I'm not going to be qualified to do so because, so I started my first term as right in the middle of the height of the conflict. And I watched our lawyer's chair change a couple of times. I learned terms like Chinese wall. I learned terms like conflicted out. And then I also heard that the parish and the district attorney, and correct me if I'm wrong, had sued each other all the way to the Supreme Court to determine that the district attorney is going to be our representative. So the problem, though, is this: it's one of trust. And I'm not saying I was one of the people who changed to stop the war that I had walked into in my first term. And Joe's not here, but he and I work together, and we are very happy. And to quote my colleague, we reached a kumbaya moment. But there is still there is a sacred trust that's supposed to be between, you're supposed to be able to trust your legal counsel. And you need to be able to trust that they're telling you what it is, and you need to be able to choose your legal counsel, and that legal counsel cannot be changed for you. So I think we need to put some more guardrails in place. I think we need to establish so that the council gets to choose who their legal counsel is, and maybe it is just a member of your staff, but we get to choose who it is, and then we get at least a commitment that it's going to be that person, as long as maybe just for the year or for the term. But there still is the potential that someone could change who that legal person is, who that person is. Like, okay, well, today it's Emily, but tomorrow it's Diana, and then it's going to be Drew, and then, and that could happen to us. We do not have the choice to do that. And then in the situation with when we tried to hire our own attorney, when we did launch the investigation, we learned that we didn't have the ability to hire our attorney and choose who that attorney was. So for those who don't know, we decided to launch the investigation into the administration. We hired an attorney. The then chairman signed a contract with that person, but we were told that we didn't have that right to do that. So it is a slippery slope when you cannot choose. It's like, Jimmy, if you want to sue me, but you got to hire my brother as your attorney. That's not a good deal for you. That's a good deal for Mr. Vincent.
To share another personal experience, and I don't quite know where this fits, but it has to do with independent attorneys. We did a public records request, and we uncovered something, another one of those, how the hell did that happen? And it eventually led to another public records request and a meeting with DA Civil, Mr. Menard, Colin, I hope I can call you Colin. Mr. Menard, is he head of civil?
He's the head of the overall civil department, yes,
Great.
sir.
When we started asking questions, it became apparent, if the parish created this problem, which we uncovered, which is still being looked at, then if it puts the civil DA who's defending the parish in a conflict of interest. And we kind of reached a dead end on that. We didn't get an answer, and we're going through another direction to see if we can correct it. But that's a problem similar where you have a conflict of interest on the part of who am I defending. I'm representing the parish, but this is a legal question involving the public, and I might have uncovered something where the administration made a mistake years ago and created this problem, which now has some legal liability questions related to it. So anyway, I just mentioned that. In the scope of things, maybe some independent ability of the council to have an independent council look at things should these things come up in the future.
Well, yeah, I think that this language where it says, it was kind of strange when we wrote this, we said no special legal counsel. So when you first read it, you think, oh, they can't get anybody. But maybe the language just needs some clarification that, yes, for a specific written purpose, they can hire somebody. And we need to follow that line that the administration needs to pay the bill, and it, and it just needs to come down.
Oh, go ahead.
So, a couple of things, because we launched into a lot of things here. So, going into, when we went back on the previous paragraphs regarding investigation a few minutes ago. So let's go back to hiring an attorney. So contracting for professional services, right? Typically executed by parish president, okay? The issue which comes up with a particular attorney and why was he not compensated, because, and I was just asking a minute ago where that all stands, but that's a whole nother matter for another day. But that particular person could, on behalf, even though not outlined, I think that's going to be an appropriate change where in order to conduct an investigation, you can contract for professional services to execute that. That solves part of the problem that occurred way back, because on your behalf, this attorney was also conducting an investigation, which you guys clearly have the authority to do. And whether compensation for that particular execution of that function should be compensated will be an argument that continues to go back and forth. I've weighed in on that. I'm not going to air that out here. Then, as far as ability to go get your own attorney for anything, I'm going back to the comment, to be able to go get your attorney for something specific. The problem is when you look at the overall scope of the number of boards and number of things in this parish, it is so voluminous, right? I saw a bill from a particular fire district, not anything else, but a fire district, where someone submitted a $50,000 bill, okay? Well, how many fire districts are there? 14. Imagine if we had a bunch of individual $50,000 bills for 14 different fire districts, what that would do to the total budget of the civil department. I think it would probably cost more than the entire civil department's budget now. Maybe not the entire, but significantly a portion of it. You have so many boards and whatnot that the civil department advises on a regular basis that if they all just had the ability to specify a specific reason to want counsel, you'd break the parish. You'd break the parish. And so part of that is there a real conflict that exists? Is there a mechanism to get independent counsel? Like right now, perfect example. Not a popular example, but I'll use it as the current example. I'm presently being sued by the parish government to determine what is the legal minimum amount of money they can fund the district attorney's office. It's not advancing. It's on pause right now. We're not spending more money on it, but it exists. Simple decision. The civil department won't be utilized. Parish government will get their own attorney. The district attorney also getting his own attorney, so we don't pollute the department that represents all bodies. It's a very common sense way to resolve that. However, every time you go get special attorneys and special things, there's a cost. The DA's office handling this business drives down the cost to do this on a regular basis, to not have independent attorneys representing for all these different subjects that tend to arise.
So my question would be, how did y'all get, I could see you, how did you hire the attorney? How did they hire the attorney?
Interesting. And I am the most transparent person known to man.
At all.
No, I'm going to tell you what I did, and it's pending right now. And was like, oh God. I submitted my bill to parish government.
Yeah.
What do you mean? How did I do it? I went and hired the attorney. I couldn't use the civil department, so I went and hired the attorney. Parish government went and hired their attorney because it's a specific purpose. We had a conflict.
Did y'all vote on hiring the? It's not the issue I'm getting into. I'm just trying to understand how did we get the attorney that we could tweak this? Do we need to tweak it? How did they get an attorney?
Who's they? They is in parish government?
Parish government.
No, I did.
I'm sorry?
the parish council hired their attorney using section 403B of the legal department, the code section that we're looking at right now, had a resolution. The parish president proposed some options. The council considered those options, selected council, had a resolution approving council, and then the parish president retained the attorney by contract.
So it worked?
Yes. It works in most instances.
But in that case, follow me, is the council and the parish government were on the same page.
Right.
What if the DA, what if the council didn't agree with the administration? Where are we at?
Well, it's the same thing for any other budgetary function, right?
Yeah.
If the parish council decides that it doesn't want to budget and fund any longer, as an example,
Yeah.
if we continue down this track and the council decides we no longer want to appropriate and allocate money to continue to fund the private attorney to sue the district attorney, they shut down funding. It's over.
It's an interesting concept because I'm not sure, they've already did a budget.
Yeah.
So it's been allocated.
Current money has been allocated.
Yeah, I'm not
Right.
sure they could turn
No,
off.
current money has been allocated.
Right.
You no longer appropriate any additional funds.
money.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes,
Sorry.
sir.
Now I'm with you.
Yeah, because the amount of funding that was requested was cut in half and reduced.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't continue to drag on if it's no longer, I guess, palpable to the council, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just
No.
normal budgetary function.
Yeah.
But bottom line is that ordinarily, there's zero issue. And the one example I would say that was brought up is that we don't traditionally give we don't give people legal advice, like just general citizens legal advice. We give parish government legal advice. We give the parish president legal advice with the designated counsel. The one thing I do disagree with is that I don't think anyone's going to be just picking their attorneys. It's kind of like when you go in and a lot of times you will hire a firm and maybe you leave and go with the attorney, but otherwise, for staffing purposes, we may have to substitute counsel. Someone may leave and take another job, and then we have to go through the hiring process, which is why I like kind of what we have as a kind of office viewpoint for continuity of representation, where you don't have an isolated person who has all the knowledge just sitting here with you and the rest of the office doesn't know. This person may go take a $300,000 a year job, and you lose all of that continuity institutional knowledge with that person if they decide not to very particularly memorialize any and all things that they've been doing grossly undercompensated for all these years on their way out. We have, some overlap in addition, a firm doing the work, not an individual, and you get it at a far reduced cost. But I do think I like the concept of building the civil department and you guys having buy-in and being able to participate in the hiring process, and then it's managed by the civil department.
Yeah. I think great discussion. So we're going to look at, Emily, some possible language in reference to choice veto agreement. I'm just throwing those words out.
And I would like to just in case there's anything that you have, since you are intimately involved in all things. Look, this is the point of this entire process is to be as transparent as possible,
right,
within time constraints, so I don't take up too much time. But this is kind of why we're here, right? I don't think anyone's married to one thing. Just because I believe one thing doesn't mean anyone else has to. What do you think?
The only thing I was going to point out as part of this general discussion is that the parish council is not a separate legal entity with the capacity to sue or be sued. So that is why we don't have a separate provision to allow the parish council to hire their own attorneys, because they should not be suing and they cannot be sued, and we don't want them to be able to be sued. And that's our defense when we've received lawsuits when the council's been named, is this is not a legal entity, you cannot sue them. So I just wanted to clarify that, and that's why Section 403B reads the way it does. Otherwise, I'm perfectly happy and everything's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, when we started that, we all dealt with it, the members of the original charter, trying to do what we thought was the best thing for both entities. But they are one government, one parish government. So I tell you, folks, it's 5:15. I'd like to get you all out of here. This has been great discussion. Now, remember, next meeting is in Slidell on 5th floor Towers building. It's on Old Spanish Trail. It's real easy to get to. I hope you all come. Jack and everybody, please come. April 24th. And with that,
I just wanted you to announce the date so the public would hear it.
April 24th, 6 p.m., Towers Building, Slidell, Old Spanish Trail, real easy to get to, 5th floor. Elevators are kind of slow. You might want to get early. I really thank the committee. I think this was great dialogue and conversation. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Do I have a second?
We have a second. We need a second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.